Hello, everybody, and welcome along to another IMSA Pro Racing Invitational. It's round 3, presented by Hagerty at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, just outside Lexington, Ohio, in real life, of course. We're in the virtual world today. This is a stunning piece of real estate, nestled in the countryside of Ohio. Very much a parkland feel to the circuit. For those of you in the UK at just after 10:30 in the evening, welcome along to the Michelin Countdown to Green, all of you. But if you're in the UK, think a little bit of Brands Hatch, a little bit of Alton Park maybe as well in that. Not quite the rise and fall of the Alton Park or Brands Hatch circuits, maybe, but there are some very interesting camber changes. We've got 39 minutes to the green flag, and our Michelin Countdown to Green will have qualifying for you as well in a moment or two. And that is the session that is next up. There's been a bit of practice going on. It's a split practice here at Mid-Ohio because of the tight confines. So not all of the cars out on the circuit at the same time. Let's bring in our other voices tonight and welcome, first of all, Ben Constanturis, who joins us again after another busy weekend in online racing. Ben, welcome back. Looking forward to this one.
Absolutely, very much so. One of the most professionally run virtual series is about to entertain again. This IMSA virtual series has really set a very high bar, and just hoping that Ford and Porsche have prepared well and can get onto the same pace that we've seen from BMW the last couple of weeks.
Nick Damon is with us again. You've done all of these with us as well, Nick, and you were with me for Bruce Jones for the digital N24 at the weekend, and we have one of the winning drivers here in Philip Eng this evening as well. This is a very different challenge for Philip to get his head around, although in some ways the character of the circuit, it's narrow, it's undulating, it's flowing, and it's surrounded by trees. There are some similarities. It's just a lot shorter circuit.
Yeah, the problem is that he had 55 cars on 25 kilometres, or 14 miles. Now he's got 50 cars on about 2.5 miles. And I have to say, having had a bit of fun with this track on iRacing over the last week, it is absolutely really fantastically enjoyably lovely when you're going around on your own. And I've had some great fun with many, many cars. I then entered a race with 35 other competitors, and it was rather more hectic and slightly more frightening.
Rodrigo Fluka is the quickest in practice at the moment in the Ford GT. Once again, Rodrigo on the 47, races for 47 Motorsports in the prototype challenge category with the LMP3 cars in IMSA. And he's got down to an 18.624. Bruno Spengler is Mr. Perfect, isn't he? He's Peter Perfect at the moment in IMSA competition with an 18.645, 18.652 for Robbie Foley. So that's Ford, BMW, and then Ford, Sebastian Priaulx, 18.662. So hang on a minute. Then it's Aykan Guven in the first of the Porsches, 18.664, 1:18.692 for Nicky Katz, Berg. And the reason I've gone down to 6th position is because, Ben, we haven't got to 1/10 of a second between the top 6 yet.
Yeah, Jesse Krohn in 7th, just over 1/10 of a second, and it's 20 cars covered by half a second. It is going to be incredibly close, and as Nick alluded to, not a track that's easy to overtake on as well. So I expect this to be a very, very competitive encounter. Also key, at the moment we've got 47 cars that have set a time, 48 cars in the session. As a short circuit, that means a lot of traffic.
It is going to be very busy. Let's take a look and give you the first glance at the Porsche keys to the race in our Michelin Countdown to Green here. Quality in qualifying. Nick Damon, you said it before, going round on your own or in a smaller field is going to give you a sense of invincibility in some respects, but it's so important, as we've seen, to get out of that melee in the middle of the pack in the early laps.
Yeah, you're going to need to put in a great time, and as Ben and you guys have pointed out, a tenth of a second is going to be the difference between probably 5 or 6 places. And the thing to remember is that whilst they will be qualifying on their own, because you do, whilst they all qualify on their own together as such, so all the qualifying happens at the same time, but they are on a clean track.
Correct.
Or a clear track. Remember that if they go off track, if they have what was called an incident, they will have that time wiped, so they have to do a clean lap in that period. And a quick lap as well, with no real way of knowing what anyone else is doing. So this is the first time they've been out there. They've got an idea of what a fast time is. They will have a qualifying setup. It may be as simple as taking the fuel out. It may be even more clever with some of the works teams, just to give them an extra couple of tenths, an even more nervous setup that just wouldn't work on this very narrow circuit. But that qualifying is going to be key, because it is devilishly hard to get past. And also, the problem is that if you go off the track even slightly, some of the off-track areas are pits of despair. You just go straight, and it's downhill. The cambers and the vale, you've just gone. You go off at the end of the main straight, and you have gone, and you're not coming back for a fortnight.
That's what they call China Beach down there. Second point in our Porsche Keys to the race for Mid-Ohio, and the IMSA Pro Invitational presented by Hagerty. Ben, patience is a virtue. There are places around this track where you're just going to have to play follow my leader for a while.
Absolutely. Patience with the traffic, patience with people that you want to overtake to improve your position, and also patience with your car as well. What you don't want is damage. You don't want to pick up any kind of issue, because the cars react so badly to having damage that you'll instantly lose pace. So keep everything clean: tyres, car, aerodynamics, and of course that means being very clean with your passes, not compromising yourself. One of the things we could see a lot of, a bit like you see in NASCAR, is once one person goes through, a whole train of cars might come through as well. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this race.
That's absolutely true. And also, if you're new to this and tuning in to the IMSA iRacing Pro Series for the first time, you may not always see a lot of damage visually, but as we've been seeing in these virtual world, the driver will feel it. They might not have the steering wheel straight, and certainly the stopwatch will show it. Number 3 on the Porsche Keys to the race, it's called madness for a reason. 4, 5 and 6 at the bottom of the back straight, just as you're turning down the hill and then up over the top of the rise. That is what the locals called madness, and it's well named, Nick Damon, because you don't take a standard racing line round there for very good reason, because none of the camber is helping you, and that's true in the virtual world as it is. I've been around here a few times in street cars, as it is in the real world too.
Yeah, heavy braking into turn 4 at the end of the long straight. They got a slight kink in it, and effectively you are at that point then thinking, well, I can see my line, but if the camber's completely against you in 5, it then curves away in 6, and then don't forget that 7 and 8 can also cause a problem, especially on cold tyres. If you crest 7 too fast, you can find yourself in all elements of pain with oversteer with the cold tyres, which they will have, because it's a very, very short rolling start at this track. I think they only get about half a lap of rolling start rather than the whole lap, and it's hard to get any warmth to the tyres. So that first couple of laps is going to be key. A, if you're particularly confident to get past, but B, just don't go off.
And the tyres we always talk about, of course. We've seen different tyre strategies in the first couple of races at Sebring. It was possible to go the whole 90 minutes without changing, and that's what the winning BMWs who locked out the podium there did. It was a different story at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, where the tyre degradation is far more is felt far more towards the end of the stint. So everybody, I think, did at least one tyre stop, and 1 or 2 people with the competition yellow, which we will have again tonight at some stage. The competition yellow, some people like Nick Tandy gambled on a second set of tyres. That didn't pay off for him because he didn't have the track positioning or caught up in someone else's accident when he pitted from 11th position. Our final Porsche Keys to the race, Ben, fuel for thought is what we've put down there, and whilst you will have to stop for a new tank of gas here, this is a racetrack where if you are stuck in traffic and you are smart, you can save fuel, and that might mean a slightly shorter fuel stop than those people around you, and that could give you the all-important track position.
Absolutely. If you are able to save a little bit of fuel, if you're clever with the pace that you're following, if you're happy with the guy that you're behind, then saving fuel at the end of the straights, coming off the accelerator a little bit early, rolling into the corners, not being so aggressive on the throttle on the exit, could win you a couple of seconds in the pit, because every tenth of a second sitting in the pit, you're losing a multitude of seconds out on track, and that, as you say, will give you the undercut or overcut, depending on when you choose to make that pit stop.
Couple of slight changes to the entry list. There hasn't actually been any changes in who is around in terms of the 50 drivers, but a couple of number changes that you'll need to keep an eye out for. Alessandro Balzan in the Scuderia Corsa Ferrari is now 63. Kenton Cook in the bright pink Ford was going to be 63, so he's gone back to number 80. One thing of note, though, Nick Damon, James Collado for Risi Competizione. Giuseppe Risi, as normally in the real world, sponsored by Ferrari of Houston. The 62 car this week. Now, James is a bit handy behind the wheel of a sim, and that might just be the little bit of a Billy bonus that Ferrari has been lacking.
Yeah, we've seen a ever-reducing number of Ferraris over these 3 rounds so far in the IMSA Pro Series, and perhaps to stem that flow, they've decided to put in one of their secret weapons in James Collado. A lot of work has been going on for setup as well, and James will be looking to turn that round, try and get more Ferraris on the track. But it is a car that can be incredibly quick. It was the GT3 version, of course, which was the fastest car at the Nürburgring over the weekend. It didn't win due to being an accident with a TCR car, which wasn't their fault. But they are fast, and I think it's getting that setup. I think all these GT cars actually are theoretically about the same. The balance of performance is very, very good, but the setups now are so complicated because they've actually worked out by proper engineers that's where the advantage is being found, John. And of course, tyre life is very key, and fuel consumption as well. So those huge compromises you get in the real world, now you're seeing in the virtual world too. There's
been a few laps clocked up in the last weekend, the back half of last weekend and the early part of this week. I can tell you that by a number of different teams. Weather looks decent at the moment. I'll wait for Drew and the guys at iRacing to give us the weather stats on the screen, and we'll convey them to you. Qualifying getting underway very shortly indeed. It is, there we go, in the 80s Fahrenheit, so well into the mid to late 20s Celsius, and triple digits on the track, so very, very hot indeed on the track. 81 is 28 degrees Celsius, and 107 is 42 degrees Celsius. Partly cloudy. We're not seeing too many clouds over the circuit at the moment, but a few degrees, Nick Damon, either way can make a big difference to tyre life and tyre performance.
The modelling in iRacing is incredibly accurate. And having done quite a few races at different times of day, in fact, Ben and I just did a race in the evening at Brands Hatch with our teams. It makes a huge difference. As the sun, you lose the sun, you gain the sun, what time of day it is, and then it's modelled really accurately. So that if we do see some cloud cover reducing the temperature, they will feel that as they would feel it in the real world. It'll obviously increase the grip because they're up at 44 degrees, and at other points, of course, they get much colder, it will reduce it. But there is a bit of cloud cover could be the key for a fast qualifying lap.
A couple of items of note on the entry list. We've got Rebel Rock Racing in a BMW. It's Matt Bell in the 71 car. That is Matt Bell, the American Matt Bell, not the brother of Rob Bell, although they have both raced in IMSA. Thank goodness not together. That would have just been too complicated for me. And a brilliant colour scheme done by Andy Blackmore, who I think has got 5 liveries in this race. In the 71 BMW then, with the Rebel Rock Racing colours on it, you'll recognise it straight away. The green, yellow and black machine, and Matt Bell debuting this week. Nick Tandy is back after a nearly race a couple of weeks ago in the Porsche GT team. He's joined by Lawrence Vanter and Ayhan Guven, the Porsche Junior driver, who I think, Ben, is the highest I rating in this race now that we don't have Sage Karam. I think Aychan has got the best numbers in terms of his iRacing rating, hasn't he?
Absolutely, and quite a lot better than anybody else. In terms of that I rating, he would be classed as an alien. It's nearly 8,000. If you are aware of your I ratings, it's huge and impressive. But he's been caught out in a couple of accidents in the virtual edition of the Super Cup over the last couple of weeks. And whilst he's fast, he hasn't had clean races.
No.
That is what you really need.
And he had exactly the same at the weekend. He was racing in a 911 Porsche Cup car, racing with Redline, which is Max Verstappen's got an interest in the Redline online racing team, and trying to chase down his teammate for the lead of the race. And he put the car off at the end of Flansgarden and actually dropped down to third. Qualifying is underway for the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational third round, presented here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course by Hagerty. John Hindhaugh, Ben Constanduris and Nick Damon in the Hagerty Global Broadcast booth in the Michelin Countdown to Green. Austin Cindric in the Ford is the first driver that we see out on the track, and he's heading down to start his qualifying run. Shinya Mishimi driving a very good BMW, a very good looking BMW, former Lamborghini Super Trofeo driver, and Ferrari out on the track as well. And that looks very much to me like the Risi Competizione colours. Yes, it is. And Colado's gone off at 4. Just misses the edge of China Beach there. James making his debut in the iRacing series here.
And John, these early laps are horrific in iRacing. There is no such thing as tyre warmers, and therefore you're coming out onto the track with rock hard cold tyres. And I think, and I've been speculating over the last couple of weeks, that this is even worse than you would have in real life, trying to get the tyres up to temperature. Great to see the setup that these drivers are using.
That's Daniel Morad, and he's got VR.
Full screen and VR, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So VR, he's got a nice microphone dangling over his head. He's got a feet-up driving position, and absolutely engrossed in what's going on and immersed, coming down through the keyhole now, staying to the inside, then drifting over to that yellow curb at the left. That's actually quite a lot higher than it looks on the TV pictures, rather flattens it out. Down past where in the real world you get the green flag, but the start-finish line, of course, is in front of the pits. Now, this is into turn 4 and madness, and this is what Nick was talking about. You would have thought he'd have got out wide there, but you just hug the curb, then let it breathe, down to the bottom of turn 6 and into the S's now, climbing under the Honda bridge. Over the top of this next rise at 7, car gets very light indeed, and then coming into what's called Thunder Valley. Again, the car goes really light there, precision required, then super quick, aiming for the guardrail on the right hand side, through the quick left and into the carousel, exactly as you would expect it to do. Any amount of different ways you can take this. In the race you'll probably get to the inside early, but it's effectively single car qualifying at the moment. Bruno Spengler with the top time, by the way, a 1:18.9, then Connor De Filippi, then the Ford GT of Rodrigo Fluker with a 19.0. Remember, we had 18.6s aplenty in the practice session earlier on. Bruno Spengler in the red BMW colours has been the man to beat. The 24, his teammate Jesse Krohn in the black BMW with the M stripes on it. But the BMW... John, go ahead, Ben.
You'd expect these times, these second lap times, to be better because the tyres and the car will be working better and up to temperature much better than they were on the first lap. So a great first time from Bruno Spengler into the 18s. But if all goes well, this should be a better one as Berg now takes the fastest time.
Berg, who made one tiny mistake at Sebring that allowed his teammate through into the lead in the first round. Sorry, say again, Nick.
Katz Berg made the same thing in Laguna Seca, where he made a mistake in the race.
Yes.
Wasn't at the time for the lead, but turning left and go up the hill, he just made a mistake and let him through.
Patrick Long down at CXC Simulators. Hello to all the guys there just outside Los Angeles. Pat, the all-Californian driver. Interestingly, doesn't left foot brake, using his right foot to brake, even though this is effectively a two-pedal car, just like the real Porsche 911. So that's very interesting. Again, with a 3-screen wraparound setup, which is so important when you're in traffic.
And Johnny's also got motion in that simulator, so he'll be one of the very few drivers that will get that extra sensation of the seat moving around, which will give him a feeling of how the rear is moving around, which many drivers at home will not have.
Well, I can tell you, I have used the CXC rig on a number of occasions, and it is absolutely quality, and the feedback that you get from the steering wheel and from the pedals, which is so important, and just enough movement that doesn't unsettle you out in Hawthorne, California. Those guys, and hi to the guys there. Now, Pat just going out. Lawrence Vanto preferring to wear his race gloves. There is something that a lot of drivers will tell you, that they prefer to wear their race gloves. There's an element of familiarity in that, but also it stops your hands getting too slippery and sweaty and slipping on the wheel. Lawrence Vanto well down the times at the moment. The best.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Porsches to set times. We haven't seen one from Guven. We just set his first one now. Tandy's just gone in, but 10th and 13th for those two. Those are the best Porsches right now. And Vanthor yet to set a time as well.
Waiting to see if we can see Matt Bell in the Rebel Rock BMW. That's going to take some getting used to. I better call it absolutely better call it a Camaro at some stage. Here's AJ Allmendinger. Well, didn't have a bad race last time out. Anybody who's in the top half of the field, Nick Damon, I think has done a pretty good job in these 50-car races, because it is so difficult to get track position.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is this particular qualifying, it's not 10 minutes for you to keep on running round. It's 2 flying laps. That's all you have. You don't, even though in 10 minutes you would be able to get possibly even 4 flying laps. It's just those 2 laps. So most of the top 10 have now actually done both laps, with the exception of Ayachan Guven. So the top 9 are not going any quicker. So Springer, Foley, Fluker, Cook, Katzberg, Filippi, Prio, Cron and Edwards, 1 to 9 at the moment, have all done their 2 flying laps. So they're not going to improve.
At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in. Sorry, Ben. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. And thanks to them for supporting the IMSA Radio side of the broadcast. Corey Lewis just going into madness now over the top of the rise. The car just gets insanely light there. And he's not on the throttle hard at that point. So he's either on an in-lap or he's trying to... Oh, no, he's got a problem. He had a problem there. Pat Long resetting so he can do a hot lap is what I'm hearing. Pat Long across the line for Porsche. Heads towards turn 1. Look at the inside of turn 1 and look how much, well, he's pulled it up there, but a perfect view of the exit of the pit lane, and there's a bright yellow raised curb on the inside as around goes the number 48 of Corey Lewis. The reason I point out that curb on the inside of turn 1, gentlemen, is a number of the drivers have told me that if you can get your left-hand side wheels over that, it does really help the car rotate through the corner. It's a bit like turn 19 at the Circuit of the Americas and the infamous hashtag straddle the sausage.
But John, you've got to be careful, because you get too much of your car over that curb, which of course is actually the blend line from the pit lane exit.
Correct.
You will get a time penalty, and those penalties are active in this version of the race. Whilst the incident points are not active, those slow down time penalties for corner cutting are.
So
Banthor's gone 17th there. We just saw at the end of his lap. There's only a couple of drivers that have yet to finish their laps. Impressive from Nick Tandy, who's gone faster than his teammate Guven. So Tandy is the fastest Porsche in 8th position, but the two of them were actually out on track at the same time and set almost identical times.
Michelin countdown to green with qualifying exclusive coverage here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us, it's Ben Constantiouris, Nick Damon and me, John Hindhaugh, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Qualifying is over. And here's how they'll line up. Spengler, the man of the moment, with 49 starters. Then Robbie Foley, the privateer BMW from Turner. Look at the gaps here. They're much bigger than we saw in practice, but that's down to the fact that they only had 2 flying laps and not 15 or 20 minutes to get some heat into the tyres. Fluker is the best of the Fords on the inside of row 2 with Kenton Cook alongside him in the purple number 80. Then it's Katz, Berg and De Filippi, 2 more BMW drivers. Then Priaulx, Sebastian Priaulx, he'll be looking for a better run at the start of the race. He's had some awful luck early on. Tandy, the best of the Porsches, on the outside of the 4th row. And he's got his young Turkish team mate, Porsche Junior driver Ayhancan Guven, right behind him on the inside of the track. Shane van Gisbergen for BMW and the number 97 car. That, of course, in the Vassar Sullivan Lexus colours, that car. Then it's more BMWs. Jesse Cron and John Edwards. By the way, remember how great Van Gisbergen was at the end of the race on his tyres. Westy is 13th. Tristan Vautier, 14th for Ford in a group of 4 Fords together with Mirko Bortolotti and Harry Tinknell in 15th and 16th. We're still not even halfway through with Lawrence Vantor in the 912 in 17th. He's got Jack Hawksworth for company in the BMW. AJ Allmendinger and Shinya Mishimi share the 10th row of the grid. Again, more BMWs. Alessandro Balzan, welcome to the championship for Ferrari. He's the best of the Ferraris. Well done, Balzan. Then Michael Lewis alongside him. Matt Bell for Rebel Rock Racing in that BMW. Then Daniel Morad, the Canadian in the Ford, the number 70. Aaron Thielitz and Riley Dickinson. Well, those two guys spent a lot of time together. Both Jeremy Shaw's Team USA alumni. Jonathan Bomarito and Kyle Masson, Austin Cindric and Nick Boole are in the top 30. James Collado, first time out for him for Ricci Competizione, has Mason Felipe for company in 30th and 31st and 32nd. Then Townsend Bell, who'll be hoping for a cleaner run too than he had in California. Misha Goikberg, a prototype challenge driver in the past in IMSA, has the Ford in 34th. Then it's Patrick Long, Parker Chase, Daniel Goldberg, Joao Barbosa, James Pesek in the PF Ford, Cody Ware in 40th position. And the final 9 are Tyler McQuarrie, Colin Brown further down than I expected him, Jerome Blakemolen. When was the last time he was in 43rd for anything? Ryan Hardwick and Dylan Murray, 3 Porsches together there. Then Philip Eng, 24-hour winner at the weekend. Roman De Angelis, Corey Lewis and Cameron Castles not putting times in, but still listed there on the grid. That's just about it for the Michelin countdown to green. Nick Damon, some final thoughts before we go into the race portion of our broadcasts here. Krohn, Guven, Koch, Cook, Almendinger, and Priaulx and Shinji Mishimi in the top 6. You happy with that? That's going to be a battle.
Sorry, John, that's actually the top 6 for the practice session they've just started.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
qualifying wise, it was Bruno. But the notable thing is that Philip Eng, fresh from his win in the Nürburgring, has had a nightmare in 46. I was interested that Mirko Bortolotti also down in 12th, because that's the guy we haven't talked about. But so far, he's had 2 top 5s in the first 2 rounds, and is lying 3rd overall. So he's got to come through the pack. Again, Gisbergen's going to come to the pack, but can Bruno Spengler just carry on?
Well, you wouldn't bet against him, would you? Let's take a deep breath. Thank you for joining us for qualifying in the Michelin Countdown to Green. We'll refresh our Porsche keys to the race throughout the 90-minute contest as we are ready to go racing with Ben Constantiouris, Nick Damon and me, John Hindhaugh, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. It's the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational Round 3 presented by Hagerty. Hang on to your hats, everybody. It's Thursday night racing, and here we are at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Fabulous circuit, tight, twisty, just about every type of corner. A real challenge for the team engineers as much as for the drivers. Welcome along to the third round of IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational 2020, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course event presented by Hagerty. It's John Hindorf with my co-commentators Ben Constanduris and Nick Damon. Coming round to just about 10 minutes to go to the qualifying. Let's take a little look at our Porsche keys to the race. And the top one on that, Ben Constanduris, quality in qualifying. And that, as far as the front of the grid, has once again gone to the man of the series so far. Pole position for Bruno Spengler. So important to be at the sharp end early.
And you pointed out just how big the gaps were between the drivers compared to what we saw in qualifying, nailing that lap, all important. And it was so easy to lose a tenth or two. Bruno didn't do that. He absolutely nailed it, got it on the pole. And of course, track position so important as well. He's in the prime hot seat. It
might be a bit of follow my leader, Nick Damon, in terms of the early laps, particularly when the tyres are cold. No tyre warmers allowed in IMSA in the real world and not in iRacing either, so patience will be a virtue right through the 90-minute contest.
Absolutely, but there's a number of drivers who are out of position, whether mostly because they feel they're out of position, but certainly these guys are going to need to come through. Philip Berg, Shane van Gisbergen, Mirko Bortolotti, they're going to want to come through, and they want to come through quickly, and they're going to have to make quick, fast passes, which is safe. And it's so hard around here, it's so tight, and there really isn't really a obvious place to get past on. Perhaps the drag down to turn 4, but there's a kink in the straight, and there's a risk at the end of that corner.
Well, let's take a look at the track map and we'll come back to our other keys to the race, because I want to have a look at how this lines up. Lexington, Ohio, just outside, is where the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is. It's a super piece of challenging tarmac, and we did run LMP ones here back in the day. 13 corners, 2.25 miles, start-finish line running down to turn 1. Uphill to the keyhole is a passing opportunity there, then down through the kink to turn 4. China Beach for the unwary is the big gravel trap to drivers left. Then through the little kinks that they call Madness. They're all off camber. It's a horrible place to be. Then the S's round onto Thunder Valley that leads through another right-left kink into the finish of the lap, the carousel. And again, there's an opportunity there to be, shall we say, robust in the way that you drive and try and stick your nose up the inside. It is called Madness for a reason, because the camber doesn't help you. You will see some very odd lines, and trying to go round too wide there is often fraught with disaster. The tyres will play a part, as will the fuel stop, and we've got a competition yellow, and we don't know when that's going to come. Nick, at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca round a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure anybody other than Colin Brown actually made any virtue out of the competition yellow, because most people had already taken their stops.
Yeah, I mean, it was thrown kind of really when all bar, I think you're right, Colin Brown had stopped. And in that case, it kind of really all it did was close everyone back up again and take away some of the advantages. And also, in many ways, some of the disadvantages people had through the bits of bad luck. So it just put the field together. Now, we don't know where it's going to get thrown. If it gets thrown around the time of pit stops, and it can make a major difference. But yeah, I mean, I think it's always exciting. It's always interesting to know it's going to happen. The teams know it's going to happen. Therefore, they've got to have at least 3 strategies: one for early, one for middle, and one for late in the race.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Here, I would think as well, Ben, with that tyre and fuel strategy, if you do get a late competition caution, and we don't know when it's going to come, slapping a new set of tyres on, it's a tough one to call, because you've got to get them up to heat, but then you're going to have better grip towards the end of the race.
Absolutely. I think key will be trying to get yourself some clean air with so many cars on track. And if you can run on good tyres in clean air, that is going to give you such an advantage. That is where the heads of esports, the engineers that are working alongside these drivers will play such a huge role today. I'm seeing them log in on the iRacing account as we speak, including actually Max Verstappen's just said hello. So he's watching in-game. But there are heads of esports from Porsche in-game that will be telling these drivers when to pit to find that clear air.
Hello to Safe Phil, to Spoon Knowledge, to Alan Prosser, to Lee J, and to Daniel Summersgill, all in the UK, all watching at just after 11 o'clock British summertime. Wherever you are in the world, you can get in touch with us here in the Hagerty Global commentary booth, broadcast booth at IMSA Radio. 4 minutes to go to the green flag. Let's remind you of how they are going to line up side by side with Bruno Spengler on the Acura starting grid, with Robbie Foley for company in the other BMW. That's the Turner car, the 96 bright yellow machine. Then it's Rodrigo Fluger in the 47 black Ford. Next up, another Ford, Kenton Cook in the purple, pink, I'm not sure what you call it. Note the number change there, by the way. Early lists had him down as 63. He will be driving the 80. Then it's Nicky Katz, Berg, another podium finish already to his name this season. Going further down, Sebastian Priaulx and Nick Tandy, 2 British Air row 4 with Ayhan Guven and Shane van Gisbergen. 9th and 10th, they'll have to make some moves there. Could strategy play a part? Jesse Kron for BMW was 3rd in the first of these iRaces at Sebring on the Super Saturday. He's got some work to do, as has Richard Westbrook. Look at Mirko Bortolotti and Harry Tinknell. We've seen those guys at the front of the field. Lawrence Vanter down on row 9 with Jack Hawksworth in the Vassar Sullivan coloured car. Allmendinger, Mishimi and Balzan. Welcome, Alessandro. Another Ferrari alongside Michael Lewis there. That's an all prancing horse row 11. Matt Bell, welcome to the championship in the Rebel Rock Racing BMW. Riley Dickinson and Aaron Taylorton together on the grid. Jonathan Bomarito and Kyle Masson behind them. Austin Cindric rather further down in the Ford, and I'm sure he would like to be. James Collado is new to the championship in the Risi Competizione Ferrari. Mason Filippi alongside him. Townsend Bell will be hoping for slightly less damage and not to be pinballed around as he was at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Patrick Long in the Hagerty Porsche down on row 18 will be looking to move forward from there. He is competing from CXC simulators out in California. Joao Barbosa, that's a long time since we've seen a number 5 car with Joao's name next to it that far back on the grid. James Pesic has another brightly coloured Ford on the 20th row of the grid, and Colin Brown will be looking to his dad for some tricky strategy to get him further forward than he has qualified. Philippe Eng, 24-hour winner at the weekend. He did a marathon 4-hour stint from darkness into daylight, but he's well down the grid here, and if he's going to get a good result, something special has to happen there. Roman De Angelis and Corey Lewis didn't put qualifying times in, but are still listed on the back of the grid. So that's how they will line up, and we're just a couple of minutes away from getting this one going. I actually can't imagine, gentlemen, 50 cars around here. It has been the site, of course, Mid-Ohio, of the SCCA runoffs for many years. So there used to be grids here, but not all as GT LM cars and the kind of performance that these cars have got. It's the 3rd round of the 2020 IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, presented by Hagerty. Predictions from my co-commentators. All right, Ben, is it 3 for 3 for Spengler, or does your money go somewhere else?
He's in the best position possible, isn't he, right now? But I think Ford will really want to give him hassle and look out for those 2 Porsches, 9th and 10th on the grid, making their way up through the field. We've
seen Rodrigo Fluger. He's quite conservative on cold tyres. Certainly that's what he was at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca a couple of weeks ago, Nick. Conversely, the other Ford driver on the 2nd row of the grid, Kenton Cook, is very good on cold tyres. Could he pull something magical out in the opening corners of this race?
Well, the Ford team, anyone driving a Ford hasn't been able to buy any luck in the first 2 rounds, so it's got to start working in their favour. Rodrigo was taken out mainly by damage caused by back markers in Laguna Seca. He was very quick and leading for a long time. Cook as well looked very good. You just think if Ford can get the second half of the race right, then there's got to be a chance of topping the BMWs.
Right, the Porsche safety car is rolling. The safety car lights are out. We're starting in Thunder Valley by the look of it, so they'll only get about a third of a lap coming through into the carousel. Now, in the real world, the cars aren't released until the back straight, but we'll see. Yeah, the safety car has gone off, and there's Bruno Spengler has already kicked it into gear, and there goes Kenton Cook, spears off right in front of where our commentary boxes are in real life. 1, 2, 3 wide going into turn 1. That may have caught some of the real world drivers out. They might have been thinking they were going to go around to the back straight just before the King. So it's the pole sitter. The pole sitter Spengler leads away. Fluker is in third behind Robbie Foley in the yellow car. Further back down the field, the Vassar Sullivan, number 97, is Shane van Gisbergen, and he's embroiled in a fabulous battle that has about 8 cars in it at the moment. But the leaders going down to where maybe 1 or 2 of them expected to see the green flag, and heading through for the first time. Van Gisbergen has kept it clean into madness for the first time. Cold tyres. Watch the variety of lines here as people are trying to pick up some grip as they drop down to the bottom of the hill, and now under the Honda bridge and through the S's. Pretty clean start for the front, with the obvious exception, Nick Damon, of Kenton Cook.
Cook speared off, and that's very easy to happen. You get slightly on the outside of a car, and even the lightest of touches, with the tyres so cold, you've got nothing, you just go straight off the side. Now, interestingly, we got away with the 4 BMs, and holding up a train behind Ford is Sebastian Priel, which makes me think perhaps the tyre warm-up is different on the 2 chassis.
Could be. How far has Cook dropped back, Ben Constanturis? Has he actually finished the lap there? Is he still running?
Yes, he did, and he didn't have to visit the pit lane, so that's good news for Kenton. 33 cars have checked through the line so far, and the rest of them now follow through. That was the cleanest start that we've seen of the 3 races we've had so far.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Van Gisbergen having to defend fairly stoutly as he is dropping back just a little bit. He's got John Edwards in the BMW right behind him, then Nick Tandy's in 10th position in the Porsche, and Ayachan Guvens actually got up to 7th in the other Porsche, so he made a very good start. One of the few people who's made up some position. Spengler, Foley, Fluke, Katzberg, that's your top 4, and they're absolutely together. This is what we expected to see, and as the tyre temps come up, Nick, we're going to see the lap times starting to come down. The last laps were pretty slow, as it was a slow roll to the line. But we saw in that practice session before qualifying that we had, I think, the top 20 within a half a second.
Yeah, I mean, the first lap is tiptoe, the second lap is tip, and the third lap you can actually start going for it with the current time. I'm really impressed.
So the first lap is tiptoe, the second lap is tip, and the third lap you can get your toe down. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, totally right. Yeah, and I'm very impressed with Rodrigo Fluker, because he certainly managed to hold on with the 4, which I'm looking at the other cars, does seem slow off the line, but he's got there, he's in third. Now, it really is, how aggressive is he going to be? Do we get the, well, he's going for the lights, that's 10 miles an hour straight away, but is he going to go and try and actually overtake the cars immediately, or is he just going to sit there and wait and see how it develops? Now, of course, the car in second...
Oh, he's thrown it down the inside, Nick, on Robbie Foley into the bottom of the hill at turn 4. Now, will they try and go side by side all the way through 5 and 6? They did. Foley, he's too experienced for that, but it looks to be Foley that's fighting the rear guard action at the moment. That's great news for Bruno Spengler, who is making his bid for freedom and now not having to look at that rear view camera in the middle of the car. As was John, go ahead, Nick.
John, don't forget, Foley's had terrible opening laps in the first 2 rounds. He's qualified well and had terrible opening laps. So he is sitting there I'm sure, with the mindset, I've just got to get the first 5 laps under my belt. I don't care if Bruno's 2 seconds ahead. I'll sort it out then. I don't want to be against a wall. I don't want to be facing the wrong way. I don't want to have bits of my car in front of me. I just want to do what I can do as the car emerges from pit lane. It's one of the bright green machines.
Yeah, that was one of the Ian Vassar-Sullivan cars. Well, that wasn't Shane van Gisbergen. So Who was that further down? Oh, little lock up on the right front Michelin by Rodrigo Fluker there as he came into the keyhole. Easy to do. It was the 12 car. That means it's Townsend Bell. Well, his bad luck continues. I think that was him coming out the pits as well. So he's had a couple of issues and already dropped off the lead lap. Spengler Foley, about a second between them. Then Rodrigo Fluker. I'm really impressed with Rodrigo because he was quite conservative. Remember, he was on pole position at WeatherTech. In fact, we've got Robbie Foley, who was on pole position at Sebring, but didn't get round past turn 3 before he was sort of given the gentleman's excuse me by the Works BMWs. And then he had another crash towards the end. He was helped into the wall, if I remember, towards the end of the lap, somewhere around the Jean de BM bends. The black, red and white Ford was on pole at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the second round a couple of weeks ago and led. John, he was pressed early on until he got his tyres up to temp, which he seems to have done now. Ben?
Nick Tandy's had a spin. He was in the same vicinity as Townsend Bell and unfortunately fallen down to 38th position. Had to sit on the outside of turn 4 for absolutely ages while the stream of cars came past him. We have also had a couple of pit visitors. We've already spoken about Townsend Bell, Lawrence Famthor as well, John Edwards as well, and Jesse Crone was another pit visitor on the first lap. Kenton Cook did go into the pits, but seemingly didn't stop.
Let's go back and have a look at the start. Shane van Gisbergen is battling away with Mirko Bortolotti at the bottom end of the top 10. Pretty clean jump from Bruno Spengler as he came out. Oh, and Kenton just lost it on his own in the bright purple number 80. Spengler got a sparkling start. You see them riding the curbs on the inside of turn 1, trying to get the cars to run, and Spengler did absolutely what he needed to. Katzberg trying to make a move in the red and black BMW round the outside of Sebastian Priaulx as he came round out of the keyhole, and that allowed the top 4 to get away just a little bit. Let's get back to the live action. Fluker still in third position. The Turner BMW in second. The crotch belt will be absolutely delighted on Twitter. It's the sort of semi-non-official-ish, only sometimes Twitter account of the Turner Motorsports team. Bruno Spengler, Canadian by passport, lives in Europe now. From the pole position, has eased away just a little bit from Robbie Foley, who is pretty decent on the sim. But you've got to say, Ben, that Bruno Spengler has been the driver who has improved so much since you saw him at the back end of last year, when he could barely keep the car on track in the sim racing world, and working with people like Alexander Voss and Lauren Heinrich as superstars from the sim racing world that BMW eSports have got on board to help their real world drivers. Well, Spengler's absolutely done a sparkling job.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruno Spengler, I first saw him in a sim alongside Nicky Katzberg at the Sim Racing Expo in September, which also runs alongside an endurance race at the Nordschleife. See one of the Fords blinking there. A horrible situation when you've got a car that has a dodgy internet connection, disappears and comes back in and disappears. You're all trying to race that car. It's horrible. Bruno Spengler is just another driver now. Obviously, he's got his own sim, he's got his own environment that he's in, but he's really so very consistent, and even more consistent than Nicky Katzberg, who's been doing it for years.
So this is the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. De Filippi in the red, mostly red BMW. Priaulx further down the road in the Multimatic Ford, around the outside of turn 4. Ayhan Guven. Oh, and he's made it stick. Well, that is, if you're going to do that, that is about the only way you can get there. You can see some dirt and grass has been pulled onto the circuit as well, and that will get worse as the race goes on. Only 10 minutes of racing gone, and we've still got a significant lead for Spengler then. It's been closed down just a little bit, in fact, Nick, by Foley, but what a sparkling move. I've got to stop you using the word sparkling. What a brilliant move by Ayhan Guven at turn 4.
Yeah, but it needed a bit of a kind of acceptance by Conor de Philippe it was going to happen. If you notice him, he did that thing where he suddenly realised that he wasn't going to get the call, and he swerved away. And he made it possible for Ayhan, both of them, to get through and live to fight another day. So sensible driving from Conor, and very good opportunist driving from the Turk.
So at the head of the field, it is still Spengler who leads out. And this has been a really smart, sensible opening. Remember, we said in our Porsche Keys to Race that patience is a virtue. And for the most part, we've seen that happen. You've got to settle in for the long run. All of these drivers, they've not just turned up now. If you're new to this, they've not just turned up now, switched on their computers and jumped into this. They'll have been practicing all week, refining themselves, refining the way they set up the car in virtual reality, and more importantly, looking at fuel numbers and tyre wear numbers, because there will be at least one pit stop here. We know there's a competition caution coming as well. If you want to get in touch with us here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre, then give us a shout on Twitter at IMSA Radio. Go ahead, Ben.
And John, that's the most wonderful thing about iRacing right now, with all of these racing drivers with so much time on their hands. Every time you jump into the forums to see which race you're going to go into, there are races being hosted by these drivers, Richard Westbrook and Sebastian Priaulx, and the Multimatic guys, Harry Tincknell as well, going into a session, practicing together, working on exactly what you've been talking about, setup and numbers. They'll have a couple of engineers in there as spectators who can communicate with them as well. And every time you go in, you see these people. We had a couple of proper racing drivers, in our fun session earlier this evening. Absolutely amazing times that we live in.
We'll keep an eye on what's going on. I'm not. That's one of the cones goes flying on the back straight there. I have noticed that Mac Bell in the urban grid, BMW from Rebel Rock Racing, is already made up 6 positions. But whilst this is settling down and the drivers at the moment are being relatively sensible, let's welcome to the broadcast Michael Hagerty, who is joining us now. Hello, Michael. How are you this evening?
Wonderful. Pleasure to be with you. This is very exciting, by the way.
Well, we've had a lot of this already this year, Michael. You with the company Hagerty have taken a real interest in sim racing, and a number of new sponsorships here, including this event. Obviously, we've had you with IMSA Radio this year already. Pat Long's in the Hagerty branded Porsche, and this race you've got your name on as well. What's prompted the interest and involvement in this iRacing Pro Series Invitational from IMSA?
You know, I travel the world and I'm asked all the time, is the next generation going to be interested in cars and driving at all? Is anybody going to be interested in cars and driving at all? And I know the truth of that. You know the truth of that. All of these racers here know the truth of that. But the reality is the big world wonders whether there's going to be this interest. And our view is that those of us who can should be helping to lower the barrier for people to get into the interest of driving and cars and having fun around cars. And so this is just a great way for us to, see the passion played forward at a really high level, at an elite level where professional drivers, great amateurs are out there trying to improve their skills. It's super exciting. The purpose of our company, Hagerty, is to save driving for future generations. That's it. And to me, I look at this, and this is driving, and we should be here.
Well, I know that the slogan that you have is for people who love cars. That's not a slogan, that's a mantra for you guys. And, the car world's been thrown into a bit of a spin at the moment because of the current situation with COVID-19. What do you think the impact will be, and will people come back to car events?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little different for a while. I think, lots of spectators at big events, certainly for a few months, maybe, heaven forbid, out through the rest of the year is going to be difficult. I think what's going to be important in the motorsport world will be for when it's safe and when it's appropriate for, real world racing to continue, even if there aren't big, lots of spectators and lots of vendors there. We certainly support that. We can't wait. We want our drivers out there driving. We want people developing great companies developing great cars. So it's going to look a little different for a while, but the passion for driving and racing and cars is not going to wane during this. If anything, I think there's going to be a real pent-up desire to get out there and to drive and to race and to improve our skills. So we're using this time not to flinch from it, but to get even better on the other side of it, and that's what we're looking forward to and excited about.
And I heard you say the other day on that point that Hagerty is building the world's largest car community. Explain to the audience what you mean by that, Mikhail.
Well, as I said before, I get this question all the time: don't people just want to ride in the back of an Uber or be driven around in some autonomous pod somewhere? And I'm not trying to save commuting, okay? I'm trying to save driving, and there's a big difference to me. And
I like that.
Right? And so we got to get it. For us to do that, we're not going to save our way to this. There's not going to be a bunch of donors that want to see this happen. We're going to need a great big organization and a lot of successful companies to pull this all together. And so I just said, hey, look, we need to save driving. We got to create a big enough company that can do a lot of great stuff for people out there who are interested in cars. And so, we're going to do it. And part of it, we have our membership organization we call Hagerty Drivers Club. Hagerty has a lot of different interests in the media spaces around the automotive world. We bought a company last year called Motorsport Reg, which is the way that a lot of people register for sports car racing in particular, but all kinds of racing all around. Race Hero is a company that we also bought around there. So our view is it's going to take an ecosystem of great companies pulling millions of people together so that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, when people are still racing like we're seeing here and out on the real mid-Ohio, they're going to say, who were the adults in the room that did this? I want to be one of the adults in the room, and we're going to make this happen.
Oh, I love to hear you talk like that, Mikhail. You're dragging me into your room on Saturday once I'm finished with the Nürburgring race that we'll be covering here on RSL. I'm going to be joining your Hagerty live panel discussion. I've said yes. I have to say I don't know too much about it. Tell me what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, the panel. So it's, by the way, go to Hagerty.com//live at 4 p.m. Saturday. We've got Pat Long, we have Jack Roush Jr., and you're going to be there with us. And we're talking about the digitization of motorsports. It's about sim racing. It's going to be a roundtable kind of all about this and how this is not some crazy idea. These are not just silly little games. This is serious racing. This is serious training. And we want to start bringing some of the best minds together and really just bring more people. We need hundreds of thousands, millions of people understanding that this is real and this is where the world is going. And we're going to lower the bar of understanding so that we can make more people interested in this stuff. I mean, I watch this race going on right here, and I feel like I'm there for real. So we should make it more available and just make it a part of our everyday life.
Well, Ayachan Guven in the Porsche's gone up to P5. Mikhail Hagerty, thank you very much for joining us. This from Carol Brink in Monterey. Great to hear Mr. Hagerty on the air. Love the fact they sponsor the Hagerty Marketplace at Laguna Seca. Mikhail, thanks for joining us. And whilst that was going on, the battle for the lead has not been turned down one iota, but there's not either, Nick Damon, been a real try for a pass. This is what we were talking about now, Porsche keys to the race. A bit of patience required. Guven's up into fifth ahead of Prior, but there has been a bit of action further down the field, and it involves the Hagerty Porsche. John Edwards in front of him and Pat Long. Excuse me. Oh no, that's a bit more than excuse me. That
would result in a very full and frank with Anglo-Saxon language in an ordinary iRace. I can tell you what did you that for? Just talking about what we've been seeing whilst we were hearing that really interesting chat with Mr. Hagerty. Philipp Eng is now starting 46. He's up to 21st.
Wow.
So he's made 25 places and it's hovering around the top. I think in 9th, though the time is a little bit difficult to read, is Mirko Bortolotti, the man who's finished twice in the top 5. So they are moving forward. And there's Philipp Eng as he's trying now. He's made a good run, but he's now got a couple of the fast forwards in front of him. I think directly in front of him is the 70 car of Daniel Morad.
Yeah, Philipp Eng is in the red and white. That is the BMW that was so impressive at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for BMW Team Austria, and through he goes on the Ford. Made that look very easy indeed. So a bad qualifying for Philipp Eng, and he's got to be thinking, what could have been here? And Shinji Mishimi, who is next in front of him, I think. Meantime, Turner BMW, Robbie Foley,
John,
and traffic ahead of them.
Remember, Philipp's race is not over because we have that competition yellow. So
Yes.
he just has to make places up because this gap, the 25 seconds behind, that will reduce at some point during this hour and a half. So he just needs to keep overtaking people and not worry about the gap to top 4 because a lot of that will get taken care of by the competition yellow.
Nice piece of driving by the 00 Nick Burl in the PR1 Motorsports. BMW saw the leaders coming and made sure he was out the way. The top 4 almost back together again as Rodrigo Fluker is right on the tailpipes of the BMWs ahead of him, and behind there it is, that's Katzberg, is it? Yeah, coming through.
I've had a bit of a word with these drivers since our last round at Laguna Seca. We saw a huge amount of problems with back markers getting involved in the lead battle in Laguna Seca and influencing the race at the end, you have to say. But the expected chaos here has not really come to fruition at the moment, and the back markers have been very, very good at getting out of the way. And I was really expecting them to compromise this lead battle, and Nicholas did a great job of just pulling over and slowing down.
At IMSA Radio, here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, delivering once again at the keyhole the 3 leading cars, BMW and Ford. That's Bruno Spengler, then Robbie Foley, Rodrigo Fluker in the first of the Fords. Now Rodrigo just got to keep pushing these 2 guys ahead of him. Really interesting to see these 3, call it 4, just pulling away from the rest of the field, and it's Ayhan Guven who is up into 5th position for the first of the Porsches. Go ahead, Ben.
One of the men I've been following is Sebastian Trio in the Ford GT, and Guben got past him, and now Conor De Filippi has just gone down the inside of him as well. Trio was right up there from qualifying, but just seems to be struggling for race pace, and he's got the wonderful livery of Shane van Gisbergen now breathing down that Ford GT's tailpipes.
Yeah, Shane van Gisbergen in the Enfasa Sullivan livery. We normally see that adorning a Lexus, but with no Lexus to race.
No, he's not. He's got a special livery today.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, it's fully Red Bulled up now.
Is he? So he's gone to his Virgin Australia Supercar livery.
Right. A version of, I suppose, yeah.
Right, okay. So Spengler, Foley.
Oh no, actually, hang on. I'm sorry.
There's some hits. There's a hit in the leaders.
Fluker got too far up the inside of
Foley.
Robbie Foley, and he just
Damage.
took him out. That's just bad driving, I'm afraid, from Fluker. He didn't brake correctly. He got up the inside and tipped him round, and that's a manna from heaven for Spengler. I think Foley's probably going to get away with that. It doesn't look too bad, but Fluker more likely has got damage. But Ayhan Guven straight up there to try and take advantage of other people's misfortune. Foley again, innocent party in an accident.
And that was at the keyhole. There is a little bit of room down the inside, but you've got to be so decisive. And just going back to what we were saying about Van Gisbergen, he is in the AVS colours this weekend. No, it's all right. Sometimes we don't always see the same thing. So through turn 1, Fluker's heads gets a good run out of turn 1. He's going to have to come from a long way back, and he does come from a long way back. He's not there, and he knew it. He climbed the curb, and then look how much rubber there is offline as well. So this is wearing the tyres maybe a little bit more than we saw at Sebring. Is it going to be the same sort of tyre wear situation as we had at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Don't know about you guys, but I'm saying Rodrigo, just when I was saying he's got to keep his calm and be patient, and Porsche keep the race there, I would say, Nick Damon, that Rodrigo was a little bit over-ambitious. That was a low percentage lunge into the keyhole there.
Yeah, I think you've got, what you remember is also is you do get quite a huge slipstream effect as well. You can sometimes get sucked into an error. He just saw a look up and his braking was going to take a little bit further forward than it should have been, and it was 100% his error. Luckily, looks like no permanent damage for either car. Foley's continued in third, so it's Katz Berg with the big winner out of that, and even Fluker's got going again when he's just behind Ayachan Guben. So again, with so much of the race to go, pit stop and the competition yellow, it's not the end of the world, but not a great start.
Katz Berg then up into second, so it's the BMW triplets again, first, second and third. The big loser there, Rodrigo Fluker, so he made the dive and drops down to fifth position as Guven has gone through. So Guven has got through on Rodrigo Fluker, and now he's in behind Robbie Foley, hassling the back of the Turner BMW across the start finish line. Down into turn one, let's see how much of the curb they take under the bridge. Yeah, see the Porsche driver taking all the curb on the inside. I think Ben Constanturis, that Foley, that car does not look to have lost too much pace. I don't think he's had too much damage on that car.
Absolutely. I was just going to question just how much the car will be handling differently. Same with Rodrigo's car. It's quite easy to damage something in the setup, in the steering or the suspension. Bodywork wise, it looks okay, but will he be feeling something different? Times at the moment, no real difference to what they were before. So that would suggest all is good.
But one of the advantages of actually having it coming together at the slowest point of the track is that the actual speed of the impact is very, very low. There wasn't a massive speed differential, but of course, because the rear end is so unloaded under braking, it is easy to spin someone round. So theoretically, it shouldn't be too bad as far as damage is concerned. And as Ben has found out very usefully, they do have what's called one fast repair. So if they go into the pit stop, they may be able to get a complete 100% car back again in only 4 or 5 extra seconds. They can choose not to do it in the pit stop, or they can get almost everything cleaned up and a new windshield as well.
It's Nick Damon along with Ben Constanturis and me, John Hindhaugh. What have we got on the clock? Just under half an hour. We've been racing 90 minutes. Started on the clock 1 hour 30 actually, as it was that format. Chan Guven just dropped back a little bit from Robbie Foley at the moment, so that Turner BMW still certainly has the pace, and we're in amongst the back markers. The number 60 is AJ Allmendinger, racing this weekend for Meyer Shank Racing and NBC Sports. They've got some great throwback liveries on those cars, and again, that's Andy Blackmore at his finest. He's learning new skills and turning real world liveries into iRacing skins as well. Down the inside, that's a pass for position as Harry Tinknell with a new look to his car for Mazda Motorsports, racing in the Ford, but a former Mazda driver as well. Looks like he's got a new race suit as well to go along with that inside the Ford GT, and the link between them, of course, Multimatic, Larry Holt's fabulous engineering, design and racing concern based up north of the border in Canada. Tinknell currently made up 3 positions, liking the way that Ford looks this weekend. And in behind him, it's a decent little battle going on there. In behind the 55 is, who is that? That's another new colour scheme as well that I was looking at. Anyway, I'll get back to that in a minute, because we've got the battle for 4th and 5th lapping at the moment, more traffic, and I've got to agree with you guys. The back markers have been much more sensible, compliant, and watching their mirrors. And Nick, you were saying, and both you and Ben race on iRacing, but you were saying there's really no excuse, because there will be a blue flag in the driver's view. It's not like you can miss it at an oddly paced flag marshal's post, as you would have that excuse in the real world.
As soon as the car 1.5 seconds, you get that blue flag. You have what's called a relative screen, so you can see where you are time-wise in position to the 3 cars ahead of you and the 3 cars behind you. So you do know where you are, and therefore, in some way, you can even have a chance to plan where to let people through to lose the least time. Yeah, I think it's very obvious. They've already sat down in the virtual room and had a virtual telling off about their behaviour as back markers, and the behaviour so far has been significantly better than we saw at Laguna Seca.
Nick, I presume that much like some of the other series I'm involved with, there'll be a full set, not only of regulations for the championship, but then there'll also be supplementary reports after each race, bulletins issued, penalty points and points, just like you would see after a real race weekend. And there'll be certain notes from race control about things that happen in Laguna Seca and things to therefore consider for this race.
Just a couple of things, guys. Rodrigo Fluke has got the fastest lap of the race so far with a 19.1. That's 1 minute 19.1. So that's getting down to sort of the times we saw, but still not right down to what we saw in practice and qualifying. Half an hour gone, 1/3 through the race. The battles continue, and Bruno Spengler leads. He had the quality in qualifying in our Porsche keys to the race. He planted it on pole position and has not been headed. He's 6/10 ahead of his teammate. Patience is a virtue. Is there patience going on behind that number 25 car at the moment for Shane van Gisbergen, as he tries to take the 6th position from Connor De Filippi? It's called madness for a reason. Well, we've seen a bit of action down in turns 4, 5 and 6, and that's already been one of our action areas. The tyres, well, they're wearing. Look offline. Look when we see some of the faster and indeed even the slower corners offline. You can see that there's tyre debris offline, and the fuel strategy is still to play into this with a competition caution to come and probably one green flag pit stop. We really don't know when that competition caution is going to come. And now the pin has been pulled by Nicky Katz, as he has caught Bruno Spengler. Spengler in traffic. Always you have the disadvantage as the leader, as he's coming up to put a lap on one of the Porsches. I think that might be Jerome Blaker more than is it? As he comes through. Down towards the end of what will be the end of lap number 24. Again, great driving by, it is indeed, Jerome Blaker Morlin in the Race Planet car. Jerome racing for Black Swan Racing and Wright Motorsports.
Well, it's roles reversed now, isn't it, John? Because it's Katzberg's chance to try and pressurise Spengler into the state. Because in the last 2 races, it's Katzberg who's leapt out the lead and been pushed by Spengler to minor errors let the Canadian through. Now it's a chance to go the other way around. Can Katzberg just ease that pressure? And there's plenty of places to make a very minor error here. Often actually quite big results for it, to be honest.
Now these are the first scheduled pit stops, or at least planned pit stops, should I say. Say Phil, that was the Ayjan Guven in the pit lane from 5th position. Check that, it was 4th position. Say Phil saying, can you explain the competition yellow? Will it bunch up the pack, or will just slow everyone to a limit? No, it is a full safety car deployed. So it will be pits closed, safety car deployed, pick up the leader, pits opened, and then safety car pulls off, Phil. And we'll make sure that before a full set of pit stops happens, we'll have our Mazda race rundown for you and run through the field. But this battle for the lead at the moment is too good to take our eyes off, as it's coming.
Oh! Guven's been turned around and collected by Nick Tandy, having just come out the pits. There he is, and on cold tyres, just the lightest of touches
at
turns
the keyhole.
Him round.
At the keyhole at the top of the hill, that was the joy of having multiple feeds with Ben watching what's going on. No, that's absolutely fine. The leader's now in behind one of the Vassar Sullivan BMWs, which dutifully stays out of the way down to the King. But is this the opportunity for Katzberg to make the manoeuvre? Can't get it done. But Spengler now living on his wits as he goes over the top of the brow. All the campers working against the BMW there. Robbie Foley still in third. We'll catch a little glimpse of the blue and yellow BMW from Turner Motorsport in the background. Rodrigo Flukas close back up to him as well. So let's go back and check a little bit of action from a moment or two ago. Now this was Nick Tandy, just got his braking all wrong, did he? Oh, it wasn't Tandy, it was the 57.
Misha Goikberg.
It was Goikberg in the Meyer Shank Racing Ford. Tandy was in close attendance, he was the next car back, but it was Misha Goikberg who turned around the Porsche of Ayhan Guven, and that was of course the leading Porsche, and it would have been the leading car to make its first stop as well. In comes Misha Goikberg, and he's getting tyres, new set of Michelins then, 55 minutes to go. It's doable, just on 50 to 55 minutes as it stands at the moment.
Also, John, just that Porsche against Porsche, the unfortunate thing was that when Ayhan was turned round, it ended up with Tandy hitting him and sitting on top, so they've both taken extra damage and coming together, even though the problem was caused, and that's why Ben thought it was Tandy who hit Ayhan. It was, they then hit each other and sat on each other, so it'd be interesting what the damage is. And of course, the problem is, for Ayhan, he's been in already, so he doesn't want to go in again regardless. Whereas Goikberg can get his damage fixed very quickly, as can Nick Tandy, whilst when it comes to their standard stop.
I still think Ayhan Guven is the leading car that's made a pit stop. He's scored at the moment in 15th position, and I think he's the leading car that's made it his first pit stop.
Yeah, Sebastian Prio's just come out of the pits, and Michael Lewis has also come out of the pits with similar length of pit stops. So not quite sure where they've slotted in, because I don't trust the timing screen at all the visuals I've got. And now that leader's in.
That was kind of Filippi.
No, it was the Filippi, it was the 25. It was the 25. There's the leader on the back straight. Spengler still with Nicky Katzberg in behind him. There's the dive down the inside. Got to tough it out here, side by side, but the left-hand side of the track is favourite there. You can go offline in that first right-hander because the hill straightens you out a little bit as you head up to the left-hander at turn 5. That's exactly what Spengler did, and he holds on to the lead. But there's a little clump of cars ahead of them, including one of the works Porsches, which I think is Lawrence Vanto, actually, just ahead of them as they're into Thunder Valley.
And Philip Eng up to 14th, John, so he's climbing from 46th on the grid. But Katzberg there, very much that was the pass of a teammate where he pushed it to the point and then, no, that's not going to work, and he's back again. And that would afford this BMW, because there's a lot more toughing out over the top of the hill through 5, but nope, they then settle their argument. Now I expect that what's going to happen is that Katzberg's going to try and draft Spengler down to the main straight again and get a little bit further past him again going into the turn 4, but let's see if we can do it as they come up to the keyhole.
Uphill braking area there for the guys. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
That's Van Thor and Guven ahead.
Yeah.
So running together on track and battling for position as well.
Are they? Right, okay. So, a couple of works Porsche drivers. There's the battle for 3rd and 4th going through the kink, and that's Foley with Fluker right in behind. There is a Ford in behind there, but the BMW is a little wider, taller, and a bit more frontal area, so difficult to see the low dark colours of the svelte Ford's GT as into the pit lane comes Dan Goldberg, excuse me, for Performance Tech out of the number 6 car. So that's a standard stop as well. So we're seeing a split in the strategy. We said fuel for thought, and how will the teams and drivers split this race up? The BMWs, when they won at Sebring, went all the way to the end of their fuel. There was no competition caution there, remember. They went all the way to the end of their fuel and then did not put tyres on and ran to the end. At WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca, it was a case of getting in early, filling up, and then running to the end with a new set of Michelin rubber. 1 or 2 people tried other strategies, but that didn't work. Here, it seems that there's no great consensus, Nick Damon, about which is the best way to go. We've seen people stopping early.
Yeah, I think the issue is that there are 56 to 48 cars on the track, depending who's still running, and the chance of putting someone into free air is virtually zero. So ideally, you would put in early now and try, as Ben said, get some free air running, and then make up the time with the undercut. But you can't find a place where there's not 92,000 cars on the track at the time.
Yeah, exactly right. Ryan Hardwick in the 16 Porsche for Wright Motorsports with the VP Fuel livery this weekend. That was the 16 Porsche that was just dropping off the jacks and heading back out. Oh, huge accident! Pat Long's gone around right in front of the leader. 3 Porsche. No, it's not Pat Long, excuse me. It's one of the BMWs, is it? Or is that? No, I was right the first time. It was the Hagerty car of Pat Long. Right as you go over the top of the hill at turn 9, as the leaders are in the pits. Leaders in the pit lane. Now there's 50 minutes to go, so easy to go all the way from here. Say again, Nick?
Big accident in the background of the carousel. I couldn't see who it was. 2 cars just went off at and then down the hill into the barriers of the carousel. It wasn't too far behind our leaders. It wasn't the 3rd and 4th, because they're on camera right now. So there are now first and second causes, Foley and Rodrigo. So those 2 are now fighting for the lead whilst the 2 BMWs fuel up. But there has been quite a lot of action at the back of the shot as cars are falling off.
So Turner BMW and Robbie Foley leads it. What happened to Pat Long right in front of the leaders? He was just ahead of one of the works Porsches and just lost it, and not even at the top of the hill either. And that was the leader coming alongside and very nearly got cleaned up there. We've seen that happen in the past. So now what happens to Robbie Foley? He's halfway around the lap. He's got Rodrigo Fluker in behind him, first and second, absolutely together as they head through the S's under the Honda bridge. So now the decision. Say again.
Berg out of the pits ahead of Spengler.
Thanks, Ben. Well, that's a change in the pit lane then. We've seen that happen before with those BMWs. Sure. How will that play out? And what was the difference? Here, it's 1 lap longer for the other BMW. The Turner BMW, I said the pit lane entry had to be watched. And there was a little touch there as Fluker did not get down to the pit lane speed limit quickly enough. Now, who's gone through? I reckon Westbrook. No, he's in the pits as well. I'll tell you who's leading in a moment. It's one of the JDC Fords coming through there with the number 10 BMW of Nicky Katzberg behind him. So Nicky Katzberg is the effective leader because he's the first car out on track, I think, that has made his stop. But let's wait until we've had all the stops and then we'll do a Mazda full field rundown. Now let's see what happens.
There's a lot of cars in the pits right now.
And Philip Eng, who started 46, has scored as the leader overall. So,
but he hasn't stopped.
He hasn't stopped, yeah. So he's managed to lead the entire field. Now he might have some clean air.
Fluker out in front of Robbie Foley. Now, is that a timed stop? They know there's a competition caution coming, guys. Would you have taken the gamble, short fuel, to get track position and then possibly try and save some fuel behind the safety car? It's a dangerous game to play, that. Really dangerous game to play. Ben?
Foley's pit stop was slow, nearly 39 seconds stationary, as opposed to Bruno Spengler, who was 30, and Katzberg at 27, Fluker at 34. The only short stop showing on my timing screen is Shane Van Gisbergen, just 10 second stop. Can't guarantee that that's correct, but if it is, something going on there.
Tinkle from the lead into the pits for the
You might expect actually for the Fluker and the Foley stops to be slightly longer because they will have some repairs after they're coming together.
Well, yeah, and don't forget there was another bang coming into the pit lane as well. Side by side action there for Bruno Spengler as he was trying to go by the JDC Miller Ford, and that was a danger time, not for Spengler, excuse me, for Katzberg, the effective leader as he comes through. So big shake-up. I reckon Van Gisbergen leads in the 97, coming out the keyhole now, but also a pit stop. So another very measured run by Shane Van Gisbergen. He was brilliant at the end of the race a couple of weeks ago and was taking chunks out of the leaders. Now, what's his lap time like? Last time around, the best was a 1:19.2. We've not seen an 18 yet, and I'm rather surprised by that. Bergen could probably go another couple of laps to completely take the tank of fuel. Will he risk that, or will he come in now?
I think if he wanted to, he could run to almost the hour, John. You can get just shy of an hour from these cars. They've got now perhaps 4 or 5 laps, but it's that risk and reward, because they're all going for 2 sets of tyres, so you may as well even up the joy of both those sets.
Caution's out,
John.
Caution's out. This is the competition caution, and Van Gisbergen's just past the pit lane entrance. The pits are closed. Here comes the Porsche safety car on the left-hand side of the track and will pick up the leader. Well, this is great news for anybody who's taken a pit stop already. Oh, extraordinary stuff.
That's an absolute disaster for Shane Van Gisbergen. If he had just pulled in the previous lap, we'd have been lauding him as a genius, but he's gone 1 lap too far, as had Alessandro Balzan and the Ferrari. But it now means that, and lining up behind them pretty soon will be Katz, Berg and Spengler, who are, of course, the net leaders.
Boys, but I'm seeing those two with very short pit stops on my timing screen. Just 10-second stops from Gisbergen and Balzan. The first not to stop, Matt Bell in 5th position, or is he even in 4th position? He's showing as the first non-stopper on my screen. Right.
Yeah, I think it's fair we have to say there are some slight confusion with the timing. I've got a timing screen here that's saying no stop to Shane Van Gisbergen, but it's showing some time in the lane.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think he stopped, because I don't think he wasn't that close to Spengler or Katzberg to be that far ahead. So he can't have actually stopped and done anything meaningful, because the fuel stop itself is a reasonable amount. It's more than 10 seconds for the fuel. So he wasn't on the tail of the BMW. He was down in 6th or 7th, and a good 7 or 8 seconds back. So, stranger things have happened, and it was hundreds and hundreds of cars coming in at the same time. But even so, I don't think Van Gisbergen stopped, and I certainly don't think Matt Bell stopped in the Rebel Rock 71 car.
Quickie yellow, we're hearing from race control. We won't even have time to do a Mazda race rundown. We'll get that going and run you through the field once we get back under green flag. So what happens at this point then? Shall we quickly run down the field as how it stands at the moment? Let's do that. Let's have our Mazda race rundown, because we're getting one more yellow flag lap, so that's perfect timing. So here's how they stand at the moment. Behind the Porsche safety car, our Mazda race rundown through the field. Shane Van Gisbergen leads, but we reckon has not made his fuel stop. Second, Alessandro Balzan. Forget about the gaps at the moment, because we're behind the safety car. Then Katzberg has made his stop, and I reckon is the net leader ahead of his teammate Bruno Spengler. And Robbie Foley has also stopped, and he's in 5th position. So the 3 BMWs that were the sharp end of the field earlier on are still in very good position. Tristan Vautier is next up, and I reckon he hasn't stopped, although Conor de Filippi, I think he has stopped. Yes, Conor de Filippi, Ben was watching that stop. Then Fluker, he's really lost out again. This happened to him a couple of weeks ago. Then Prio, and the top 10 made up by Mirko Bortolotti. Richard Westbrook in 11th position, and Michael Lewis in 12th. That's your Mazda race rundown as the safety car lights are out. So, gentlemen, what does Van Gisbergen do now? I suppose what he's got to do is to absolutely try and hammer away here for a couple of laps before he dives into the pit lane. And
I think, John, that Ben's found out he's actually made a very quick stop. Is that right, Ben?
I don't think he has.
Yeah. In the replay of iRacing, you can rewind, and actually I can visually see him in pit lane, stopped for 13 seconds only.
Okay.
So certainly didn't take tyres, but certainly also couldn't have refueled fully either.
How much fuel do you need to get to the end? With this competition caution, it's going to stretch him out a little bit. So maybe he's going to go again and then try a splash at the end.
Perhaps he's
Lights
gambling
out
on
on the
this
safety
being
car.
Yeah, lights have been out for half a lap, so they're going to go green this time.
I wonder when Van Gisbergen was gambling on the fact that the competition caution would come late in the race and he would get a free splash and dash.
So into the pit lane for the Porsche safety car. Lap cars in between the leading runners. Katz Berg is the first that have done what we might call a proper stop. Katzberg must have took tyres as well if he was in the pits for the length of time you were talking about, Ben. So he's leading. Spengler, effective leader, shall we say, in behind traffic at the moment. And this is great news for Van Gisbergen. Van Gisbergen's made a break. And look at the gap he's got on the rest of the field, through the kink and down towards China Beach and Madness. And then, well, it's a traffic jam behind him. And inevitably, the Hublot Ferrari and one of the Fords have come together. As
Goikberg again.
Was it Goikberg? Yeah.
Yep.
So 57 and 63. So that was Alessandro Balzan. Yeah. Well, Balzan was running well up, but he hadn't made his stop. And Goikberg, as you rightly said, Nick, good spot there. But Van Gisbergen has cleared out. He has made his bid for freedom and is disappearing into the distance. John Daggies, hello John, from Sportscar 365, following along, watching the live timing and scoring at radio-show.co.uk. He says SVG might be able to make it from here. It's only 30 seconds for a full tank, and if he took 13, 14 seconds, that's nearly half a tank. Did he get enough in to manage to get him to the end if he was stationary for 13 seconds? I know John's got an iRacing account as well, so he'll have done some laps round here. He'll have been looking at the fuel and the tyre numbers. The question for me is, will he have the grip at the end? Because he can't have changed tyres. Absolutely could not have done the tyres. 2.5 seconds, Van Gisbergen. What happened to Balzan? Oh, he was absolutely nailed by Goikberg. And that's going to be annoying for Balzan, because that was a position for him. He'd fought his way up there in his first race in the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational. And yeah, he had to take a pit stop, but he was still battling it out the sharp end of the field.
John, Shane Van Gisbergen in the last race in the Laguna Seca was by far the gentlest on his tyres, and which is why he very, very nearly picked up the win at the end. He was getting hand over fist on the Spengler BMW. However, if the other BMWs have now got fresh rubber, that won't be a problem. They actually have the advantage. Yeah, Porsche spin pit lane. They'll have the advantage in the last half hour or last 20 minutes when they will have much better tyres. Even however well you're using your soft shoe sandal loafers to get the car around, you will have heavy tyre wear round mid-Ohio after an hour and 20 minutes of fast racing.
SVG, being from the Antipodes, he'll be wearing thongs, won't he?
Good point.
Which is what they call flip-flops. I've just had the word from Aim Vassar-Sullivan. They reckon they are fueled to the end. They reckon Van Gisbergen is fueled to the end of the race, and therefore, unless something goes wrong, he will not be visiting the pit lane again. So that's the word from Aim Vassar-Sullivan on Shane Van Gisbergen. I find that extraordinary, gentlemen, but I'm not going to argue. They're the guys, that's the team. That's what those hundreds of practice laps were all about, John, wasn't it? Absolutely.
Finding out exactly what the fuel consumption was. I'm sure they've done race runs. I mean, the grip will be slightly different. One of the good things about iRacing is you can actually choose to have the track surface as it would be when it's been heavily used. You haven't got to practice like you do in real life on a virgin surface. You can actually say, I'm going to wind the grip up, so it's actually like it would be with 50 cars going around.
Spengler's just put in the fastest lap of the race. It was that honour was to Rodrigo Fluker, but it's a 19 flat now, 19.1 from Katzberg, and Van Gisbergen has done a 19.3. Ben?
John, I can confirm that the BMWs with their 30-second pit stops did change tyres in comparison to just a few drivers that chose fuel only. The next one down, though, is Alessandro Balzan. Also, Kenton Cook managed to do a fuel only. According to my timing screen, he's now sitting in 17th position.
There's the first 18. Spengler last time around, 1:18.993. his best, and they are closing in almost inexorably. Cue up the Jaws music for Katz, Berg and Spengler, but Van Gisbergen, the past master at being light on the Michelin tyres. Look at the traffic through madness. Tinknell in the orange car, 67. Alongside him is the other Ford of Richard Westbrook, and AJ Allmendinger going 3 wide as well in the number 60. Further up the field in the Meyer-Shank Racing NBC Sports entered BMW M8 GT Le Mans.
And in the back of that shot, the red and white BMW Philippe Eng has now made up just 33 positions, John.
Yeah, 13th overall, having started way down and only 13 seconds away from the leader. I don't think he's going to get to the sharp end of the field in terms of a podium, but what a drive that is already from Philippe Eng.
And if you're wondering where the first of the Porsches are, Aykan Gubens had a second stop. Nick Tandy's had a second stop. Gubens in 18th position, but Tandy, I think, may be out of the race because he's still in the pits after 4 minutes. So not going well for Porsche brand. In fact, Ferrari ahead of them with James Collado, the second best of the Ferraris, behind Alessandro Balzan, who is 15th.
AJ Allmendinger really hanging it out a moment or two ago, 3 wide through madness, where, to be honest, you can seldom get 2 wide. Harry Tinknell looking forward to the BMW going round the outside of, my goodness, actually threading the needle, the eye of the needle, AJ Allmendinger, as he went by Richard Westbrook in the 67 Porsche. That was very, very brave indeed from the Dinger. A little bit of paint traded, I think, between those two. Top 3, in fact, top 4, all BMWs heading up towards the keyhole. Van Gisbergen, then it's Katzberg, then Spengler, then Foley. That's your top 4, separated by nothing at all. Behind them, it's Colin De Filippi, another BMW. And Rodrigo Fluger, even after that long pit stop, still running in the Ford and turning in good times, 19.6 last time around. And remember, that number 47, the black, red and white Ford, has done a 19.1, so there's pace in that car. 111, the Multimatic car, is Sebastian Priault, the Guernseyman, proud Guernseyman. Sebastian just ahead of the JDC Miller car in a battle for position. That's Tristan Vautier at 7th and 8th. Behind them, Mirko Bortolotti is another Ford. So we've got a bunch of BMWs at the front and then a phalanx of Fords filling up the remaining top 10 positions.
It's about this
John,
point, I think
we
this...
spoke of... Sorry, Nick.
Come on, Ben.
Go on, Ben.
We spoke of a little bit each race about the performance of Richard Westbrook, both at Sebring in the opener and then Laguna Seca. He's been running well. He's in 11th position right now, but his pit stop was 2 minutes long. So had he been able to do a shorter normal length pit stop at 30 seconds, he could be right up there.
Spengler, 3rd. Right behind him, Foley in 4th position. Nick?
Spengler at the moment, I think, is the fastest car then. He's probably being slightly bottled up by Katzberg ahead of him, who is obviously not got the... I know they're weaving down the straight as he looked to get the inside of Van Gisberg going into turn 4. That's a hard move to make, but Van Gisberg already suffering from not having as much grip, but he has track position, and you have to go almost fast enough. Round here, you can probably hold people back until you make even the most micro of errors.
Or until somebody gets frustrated, of course. Down the... Oh, yes, that's not a passing place. Going over the top of the rise into Thunder Valley. Van Gisbergen in Vassar Sullivan. They've rolled the dice. Remember, in our Porsche Keys to the Race, we mentioned about the fuel and tyre strategy. Well, they've rolled the dice on both. Took a short pit stop with no tyres to get SVG to the end of the race. He got the track position. He led the race. But that 2.5 second advantage that he had after a splendid restart has gone, and now he's driving on his wits. 4 BMWs up the hill towards the keyhole. What have we got left? 1 hour elapsed, 30 minutes to go, just a little bit over that at the moment. 31 minutes, let's call it, in another fabulous IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational. This is round 3 at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, presented by Hagerty. Nick Damon, Ben Constanduris and me, John Heintorf, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. And that 4 BMW train.
Yeah,
well, Nick, we watched this kind of racing for 24 hours at the Nürburgring Nordschleife at the weekend, and the precision and the skill of these drivers to be this close lap after lap is just absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, and I think also at this point, having a bit of iRacing experience, if I was Spengler, I'd be leaving a bit of a gap, because you've got a very, very keen man in second, looking about going first, and at this point you sit there rubbing your hands, especially when you've got half an hour. You can leave them to have an argument for 10 minutes and just see what happens, and it may be you'll find yourself in the lead without trying.
So that top 4 then have got around about 2 seconds, maybe a little more, between Robbie Foley at the back of that 4-car train to Conor De Filippi, who's in rather splendid isolation actually at the moment, because he's got 3.7 seconds back to Rodrigo Fluker in the Ford in 6th. Then Sebastian Priaulx, another Ford, in 7th. Then it's Tristan Vautier in 8th. Richard Westbrook in 9th is just 3/10 behind Vautier. Then Kyle Masson is a long way further back in 10th position for BMW. Top 4 still having a little bit of a dispute. The thing here, Ben, for me is, with still half an hour to go, you can't afford here to make, with all the pit stops done, you can't really afford to make a move that doesn't work, that causes you damage and slows you down.
And also, they're all of the same brand, aren't they? So BMW would not be happy if anything happened between these 4 cars. They'll all have been working together as well with the same engineers and team manager. I know that BS Competition heavily involved as a sim racing team in BMW Motorsport as a sim manufacturer. So they will be monitoring this heavily. Another little bit of news that I've been following, Nico Bertolotti was inside the top 10. He's just taken his second pit stop. It was only for 3.7 seconds. So clearly his first pit stop, he didn't get his fuel numbers right, and he's had to go and get a bit more.
That's unfortunate, because that, of course, Mirko has made top 5 both times, and that's going to drop him way out of that contention. But those little errors do come when you're just, judging by the 10th of a second, the minimum amount of litres in, and sometimes you just get it slightly wrong.
How much do we think here, guys? There's a bit. We know that Katz, Berg and Spengler can talk to each other in terms, and do talk to each other in terms of being quote-unquote teammates, different coloured cars. But we know they've worked together and talked together before. But Nick, there was certainly no team orders played out at Sebring. We asked that question in the Michelin post-race tech interviews.
Well, you've got several radio channels available to you on iRacing. There's a Teams channel, there's a general channel, there's one you can talk, of course, as Ben said, you can have your own spotter come in and talk to you as well. Now, I'm not sure, I doubt there's a BMW channel that is talking to all 4 of these drivers. My guess is Van Gisbergen is running a separate race tactically, though, as I say, with the cooperation of setup and practice over the past week or so. But yeah, absolutely, the Spengler and Katzberg will be able to talk to each other, but at the moment I'm sure the conversation is quite light, because they're concentrating on looking for advantage. And noticeably, Spengler is still trying to look for that edge to get past Katzberg. He's not sending Katzberg as the missile to try and remove the Australian.
1:19.8 last time for Van Gisbergen, a 19.5 before that. His best is a 19.2. He's definitely holding up the other 3 BMWs, but he's pacing himself towards the end. Now, what will happen, of course, eventually, Ben, is that the tyre performance on these cars, as we get down to the last 10, 15 minutes maybe, might just equalise. And Van Gisbergen, who's taking it easy at the moment, he's making the other guys move around behind him, go offline, maybe use their tyres just a little bit more. And what he's hoping, of course, is that he can keep that track position long enough. Oh, it was a touch! Oh! There was a touch for the leader there. And Katzberg's turned round Van Gisbergen. That was a touch. That was a touch.
That was a touch as far as the programme is concerned, but to me, visually, they didn't actually touch. So that was the conceptual idea, of course, because we talk about this in any virtual racing, that actually the cars aren't in the same part of the track at the same time, because what's called ping, the delay between what comes from your steering wheel and your pedals and what goes into the computer. But let's see whether he was actually hit or not. But it looked like the second time there was no contact. Let's have a look.
Coming through to the end of the S's, Van Gisbergen turns in. Yeah, there's a hit. Hit on the right rear. And we've seen Katzberg do that a couple of times, stick his nose in. I wonder what it looked like from Katzberg from the onboard. We might be able to grab a look at that. I know Drew's looking at it. Oh, and he gets hit again.
Yes, that's the one that's going to do some damage. That second one
he's
clunked
done
by the Porsche. That's really bad luck for Shane, because he was going to recover to perhaps 5th or 6th, but that's really unfortunate. And what I was talking about this kind of predictive accident is a thing called netcode. It's where the computer is working out whether they would have got together if it wasn't for the fact that it's holding them apart because of the delay between the actual movement and what's happening on the centralised program here. So that's a netcode. It'll be interesting to get several more angles of that, perhaps after the race, just to see whether it was an actual physical touch or what was assumed to be a predicted touch, effectively.
You saw the car snap sideways. It certainly wasn't an error from Van Gisbergen. And now a battle for the lead as Katzberg and Spengler are side by side, coming out the carousel towards the end of the lap, and they'll go across the line still side by side. Robbie Foley sits in behind them. There's a touch now. That definitely was a touch, and Hingham's falling down the inside, and Spengler goes around. Spengler goes around and recovers, but has lost ground, and through goes Conor de Filippi in the other red BMW into third. More Bavarian on Bavarian action there. BMW really giving themselves a lot of work to do if they're going to lock out this top 5 as they were. Rodrigo Fluger now back up to 4th position, and Sebastian Priaulx into 5th after that. That seemed to me, Ben Constanduris, a little bit unnecessary. Spengler got around the outside, but I'm not sure that he was there. And we'll be able to have another look at that. He's not quite all the way there. No, but no doubt in my mind, Katzberg moved over to the right-hand side. Great driving by Filippi, by the way, to miss Spengler, who was across the road. Looked to me as though Nicky Katzberg didn't track Ben Constanduris straight and true into turn 1.
No, he was trying to take the racing line, and there was still an overlap. He will have known there was an overlap. It would have been said to him if he's got his automatic spotter or if he's got a manual spotter. So he would have known that car was there, and by getting sideways, he then got collected by Foley as well behind.
Well, frustrations beginning to show through.
But this is mid-Ohio. There is no obvious place to overtake. So if you get half an overlap, you've really got to force it and then, take those 4-corner overtakes. And, certainly Katzberg very strong in his defence there. And perhaps, to be honest, Spengler should be, when you're 7/8 behind a car, perhaps you need to back out if you're about to go into a fast corner.
Well, you mentioned that about Spengler before when the SVG and Katzberg were racing, and that very close quarters action can easily backfire, and you can get caught up in someone else's accident. So we are down to the last 22.5 minutes. So into the final stages, and let's hope everybody's got their fuel numbers right, because that's the next thing to go. That was our final Porsche key to the race. Make sure that you get the fuel numbers right. This is a really interesting circuit. Seen it in real life back in the American Le Mans Series days with Audis and the big R8s. Exceptionally fuel efficient. Managed to go with a stop fewer than everyone else. But you have got to get those numbers right, Ben. Go ahead.
John, just looking at that incident between Spengler and Katzberg, there was the lightest of touches coming through the last 2 corners that just put Katzberg offline, which allowed Spengler at least alongside through the first and second parts. Of course, that put Spengler on the outside all the way down the straight, and that then resulted in him getting sideways when they got to turn 1.
Let's take a run through the field with another one of our Mazda race rundowns. Check out some of the drivers. First of all, Lawrence Vantour just outside the top 20 in 22nd position. I noticed he's put some silverware in view there. He's won plenty of it. A picture of concentration. Pat Long and the Hagerty Porsche at CXC simulations. And he's in 27th position at the moment, working his way back after a couple of incidents, but staying in the race. Like to see that. It's the black coloured Porsche. Daniel Morad up to 19th position with the VR headset on, as well as all the screens, just in case something should go wrong. But the full immersive experience and very much more laid back driving position, more of a prototype driving position for the Canadian. 19th position in the number 70 BMW at the moment, driving for WRT Speedster Audi Sport. So let's take our Mazda race rundown then, with 20 minutes to go. Nicky Katz leads the race by, well, the distance of a couple of BMWs is all, isn't it? About 0.6 of a second. From in second place, Turner BMW, Robbie Foley. Is this to be his race after awful luck in the first couple of rounds of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational? Third position, it's another BMW, Connor De Filippi, who was almost stealthed up to third position in the red BMW number 25 that he drives for BMW IMSA Team Red. Then behind them, the first of the Fords, Rodrigo Fluker, started on the second row in the 47. Has had good pace, but has also had a longer pit stop than he would have liked it. And then Sebastian Priaulx in fifth and Spengler in sixth. Let's take another quick look at the drivers and where they are driving from. Here's the Mazda race rundown for you. And looking there at Aaron Taylitz in 24th position, blacked out his room using his race gloves as well. And behind Aaron is one of the Porsches there. That looks like Jerome Blakemolen's car from the rear view camera. I do like the fact that they are so sharp that I can tell that even looking on a relatively small screen there. Now, Philippe Eng is getting close to Westwood. Westwood close to Corey Lewis, and that is all battle for position. Eng in the red and white at number 26 Team Austria BMW, and that's been a good drive from him. That's the battle for 6th. I think it's 6th, 7th and 8th. Oh, actually Spengler's in there as well.
Corey Lewis is a lap down, John.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wasn't getting out of the way of Westy and Philippe Eng having a battle. Eventually they managed to get past him, but he wasn't conceding, and that's allowed Eng to get right onto the tail of Westy. Now they're in clear air, and actually Westy's being able to pace Eng, and Eng's finding it more and more tricky to make progress. It's been, as you say, a fantastic effort from him, starting so far back and not getting a qualifying lap in, but it does seem like the progress is slightly stunted now. Westy is about a second and a half behind Spengler in 6th, who will also be looking to try and make progress after that early incident.
Well, that's what you expect. I mean, obviously, he got through a number of people who, in the first lap, who'd fallen off and had their instance. Then you kind of gradually crawl up. Eventually, you get to the people you should have been fighting with in the first place. And thanks to the competition yellow, he's only 8.5 seconds off the lead. But he's going to have to make some good passes and look after his tyres and fuel if Philip's going to get to the place where he really thinks he should be, which is the podium.
It's Nick Damon. Before that, you heard Ben Constanturis with me, John Hindorf, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Sorry, just watching the timing screen here, and the battle further down the field for 4th position. Now on the right hand side of the screen, Rodrigo Fluker has got Sebastian Priaulx in the similar Ford, so the black Ford from the white and blue Ford, and then Bruno Spengler recovering in the BMW. Behind him it's Westbrook and then Philippe Eng. all of those cars gently coming together here, and that will effectively be the battle for fourth position in this.
Yeah, and they just caught Colin Brown just at the wrong moment there. That's why that battle concertinaed, because Brown was caught just in the middle of a corner by Fluger, and eventually he managed to get out of the way, but not before they were both delayed.
Yeah, it's good to see the Fords finally having a decent second half of the race. We're finally seeing the cars performing as we expect them to. Obviously, Rodrigo Fluger, who was the fastest car, did got his copybook slightly, but they're coming together with Robbie Foley. But they have now got the strength to see this second half of the race out. Spengler looking very, very racy around and about Sebastian Priaulx, but he's got 2 wins in the 6th. I mean, at the moment in the bank, does he actually need to move forward? He's thinking about the championship, or are they just thinking about the individual races still?
IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational Round 3, presented by Hagerty at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And off in front of Priaulx, that was the bright green Ferrari that was in the grass for a moment, and that would have taken Sebastian Priaulx's eye line just a little bit. But he's kept out of the way, and Priaulx just about holds on to his position from Spengler as they go through madness with Fluger ahead. This is all getting a bit exciting here. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th all together. Yeah. And Harry Tinknell is lapping quicker than all of them ahead of, and he's only 4.5 seconds further back in 9th.
Yeah, so that is Westby and Eng now having been released, getting onto the tail of this group in this battle. And with the mix of Ford and BMWs, there'll be no love lost, and they'll be able to really attack. Jeroen Bleekemolen in front of all of them should be able to pass before they get to turn 1.
Line of 5 cars in a battle for position whilst at the head of the field. The gap between Katz, Berg and Robbie Foley barely been half a second for the last 5 or 6 laps. It remains the same. We'll keep an eye on that because we can't take our eyes off this battle for 4th position. Priaulx tries down the inside into the keyhole. Really strange corner at the keyhole. It's an uphill braking area, and then just as you turn in, it starts to fall away. Really difficult to hold the car to the right-hand side in the middle part of the corner. If you go half a car's width off, you are absolutely toast because you can't get the power on for the long straight. Spengler down the inside of the Multimatic Ford, but he can't get that done. Westbrook in the eggshell blue Ford, he's trying for position, and Philip Eng is thinking, I've got a bit of this as well. For one moment there were 3 wide. Eng hip checks him, goes through. So Philip Eng hip checks Westy and makes up a position. That's 7th now for Philip Eng in the Team Austria BMW, the red and white car. That was forceful driving.
That was, I think in the words of 70s football, that was hard but fair, to be honest. Who was that?
That's a broken BMW.
Or was it someone just getting out of the way? I do feel for Tony's back, Michael, because I've been slightly off the pace in races, and you've got 6 or 7 cars coming past you, and you want to get out of the way, but if you're down the straight, they want to use you for an aerodynamic slipstream as well. So you're trying to get out of the way, and they're coming right behind you, going, ah! What are you doing? And they shoot past, and of course, if you block them at all, they get very upset, even though you're trying to get out of their way.
Ryan Hardwick's just gone straight on, I think, at the keyhole to get out the way in the light blue right Porsche as this battle for 4th position continues. Here comes Priaulx. He's got a really good run out the keyhole. Fluke has got to go to the right hand side and defend. You can get this done round the outside, but you've got to tough it out. Well, here comes Spengler. Oh, there's a touch. Fluke goes round. Priaulx goes off, and through goes Eng. Oh, that's an awful rejoin. An awful rejoin by Priaulx. Awful rejoin.
Westbrook.
Awful rejoin by Sebastian Priaulx as he went across the grass. I don't know whether he touched Fluke first or Spengler took him first, but Eng was the one who benefits, and Eng's through to 4th position. Where did he start, Nick? Oh, there's the Wright Motorsports car going around. 46th.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see that whole incident from Sebastian's point of view, because I think he may have been tipped off possibly by Spengler in the first place. And of course, once you're on the grass, you're just trying to hold the thing together and keep it out of the barriers, and it's very difficult not to re-emerge on the track somewhere, especially with this snake-like serpentine shape of Mid-Ohio. Suddenly you just find yourself back on the track again. Unluckily took Spengler out, but that must be deserving about 7 different replays.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment as the leaders going down through the kink. They've got traffic ahead of them. Let's just watch them for a moment. No, that's all right. So coming down towards turn 4, and Seb hits Fluker. Fluker goes sideways. Seb tries to go around him. I'm not sure that Spengler did hit Sebastian.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
Then he got nailed by Prior as Prior came back on, and Westy was the innocent party and got picked up by the spinning Spengler. But that, to me, Nick Damon, and Ben will be looking at this from the onboards as well. Let's go to Nick first. That looked like it was Sebastian Prior who tipped the back of Fluker into the original spin, and everything else was the consequence.
I'm afraid that if you're apportioning blame for that chaotic accident, that is unfortunately is young Sebastian Prior, because he did tip Fluker block. Spengler tried to avoid him. The second accident when Sebastian came back on the track, that's just bad luck. That's just one of those things. Because you are a passenger when you're on the grass, just trying to keep out the barriers. It's just really unlucky for both Spengler and Westbrook what happened next. But yeah, the initial three-party accident was unfortunately Seb's fault.
Yeah, and then for me, Fluker did break very, very early when he was defending. He was kind of in the middle of the road, not really defending, not really attacking, and Seb was put in a very difficult position because he had the overlap, but he didn't really want to open the door to the inside. So it was a really tricky situation down there. And for me, Fluker was early on the break because he wasn't sure where he was on track and how much grip he had. Either way, definitely damaged. And now, I thought he was going down the order, but actually he's now in 6th position.
I thought that Seb was going to try and do that run round the outside in 4 and then block pass up the hill to 5, and it's kind of that he sort of bottled out of it and decided not to do it. We can have a look at the onboard from Sebastian Prior. He's dragging up behind Fluker. Oh, sorry, this is an incident with the. All right, that is Fluker. Yeah, he just knocks the back of Fluker. Fluker comes round, and then, as Nick said, he is a passenger, and he rejoins and absolutely nails Spengler. And after that, it's chaos. And then when he gets back on the track after all of that, he comes up behind James Collado, that is, in the Racing Competizione, and that is. I know that's the 70 car.
That's Daniel Morad.
That's Daniel Morad.
It has a VR accident, that was.
Yeah.
Good sexy reverse there by Daniel. Got that very quickly. Yeah, I mean, I think with I can see what Ben says about
Kenton Cook just spun off at the top of the hill at 5 and hit the barriers on the left-hand side.
Yeah, about Rodrigo breaking early, but I still think it's down to Seb not to hit him.
Guben's just gone ahead of Fluker as well for 6th position. So considering 2 pit stops and not a very good day for Porsche, Guben is suddenly doing amazing things. Probably has very good tyres.
Well, and there's the point, Ben.
Only 20 laps to go.
Yeah, and there's the point, Ben. And what did we say? After that competition caution, who will have the tyres at the end? It's about fuel and tyres at the end. And Guben is well back from the leaders, but now only 3 seconds away from Harry Tinknell, who is next up the road to him. So Tinks has come through as well, I think. I was just watching my timing screen. Yeah, Tinks has come through. The 2 BMWs are leading it.
Yeah, I think Tinknell made the most of those 3 or 4 other cars having the problem caused by Prior. So he's now picked up a nice lot of extra points. But Foley is Jesse Foley getting quite close to Katzberg now. He's thinking about this. We've got 7 minutes to go. So 4 laps, 5 laps, and he's now thinking about what can I do to become a winner here in Mid-Ohio. And
there's still lots of cars out on the track as well. So opportunity in traffic. Leaders through the S's and up over the brow to Thunder Valley. Robbie Foley follows in the wheel tracks of the leader, Nicky Katzberg, as they come round to complete the 61st lap here in the 3rd round of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational, presented by Hagerty at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And still to come, VIR and Watkins Glen, of course.
And Road America.
And Road America, yes, absolutely. Through turn 1, up the hill. BMWs first and second. Third place at the moment. It's a long way back after that schmozzle that we had. Well, Robbie Foley, as Nick Damon rightly said, has had, well, the only look he's had is bad luck in the early parts of the first two races of this series. He kept out of trouble, and he's clearly got the pace that we thought his qualifying showed in the previous two races. He's played an absolutely storming game for Turner BMW. I really wish that we'd kept Van Gisbergen in this, because I would love to have seen what happened as the tyre performance evened out towards the end, but that wasn't to be. So Philip Eng makes it 3 BMWs in the top 3. Eng now just 2.7 seconds behind this lead battle. And you've got to say, for me, Eng's the driver of the race, Ben, because he's made up so many positions, his tactics has been perfect, and he's not got a scratch on the car on that red-white BMW Team Austria machine.
It happened a little bit earlier on in the Laguna Seca. He got to the lead with about 15 minutes remaining before then getting caught up by back markers. So it's taken a bit more time here, as you would expect. Contact!
That was Foley there got wiped out. Who was it who clunked him?
That's another one of the BMWs down the field. I'm afraid I was looking away at our Twitter at IMSA Radio.
Massive advantage to Katzberg with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So it's the purple and blue car. Not sure it was.
So let's see what happened at the keyhole. So I'm looking at this for the first time from the Liqui Moly car. Looks like the door is left open by the number 6 of Goldberg. Dan Goldberg for Performance Tech. And it's the damage. I think there might be a little bit of damage, and Robbie might be struggling now for a bit of pace. Leader now has got a handy 1.233 seconds. Connor De Filippi's just put the fastest lap of the race in. At a 1:18 of his fastest lap of the race in, excuse me, a 1:18.9. Shane Van Gisbergen has the fastest lap of the race overall with an 18.6. That's the sort of times we saw in the longer runs in practice earlier on. Van Gisbergen, by the way, back up to 15th position.
Yeah, the last lap 1:25, so he either had a problem, or if that's his pace now, he really is struggling.
And that is SVG between first and second at the moment. And, well, there's going to be no love lost here, is there? Between him and Katzberg, because it was Katzberg who tipped him up while he's in the lead. And the sight of an angry SVG in your rear view camera might be enough to scare Katzberg off. Is there a little love tap there coming out of off the top of the hill and now through into the S's? Robbie Foley, well, he's just a spectator at the moment. Van Gisbergen looking forward to the leader of the race, having just dropped the lap to him as they head down Thunder Valley and now towards the end of the lap, so close to the red Armco on the right hand side, into the carousel with traffic ahead. And coming towards the end of the race, we've got 2.5 minutes left. Remember, the last lap is when time elapses. Wherever the leader is, could be the start of the lap, could be the end of the lap. I think Van Gisbergen's got a score to settle here, or a point to prove. Now, whether that's just unlapping himself again, or whether it's doing something a little more brutal, the Ian Vassar-Sullivan guys got their strategy pretty much perfect. Shane was on older tyres. It would have been a very interesting battle. There's nothing wrong with Shane's pace right now, though, is there, guys?
I can't help
only 10 laps on those tyres, so they're really, really healthy tyres to get down some really good laps. And Katzberg's being really struggling getting past some of his back markers.
As he goes past the number 19 Porsche in the hands of Park and Chase for Vertical Bridge. Here comes Robbie Foley. He's got a couple of cars to go through. This is going the way of Nicky Katzberg. It's not falling the way of Turner. But Robbie Foley, it's a spin. There goes the Porsche, and he's got by as well Van Gisbergen, who I think just lifted off there as they entered Thunder Valley for the 65th time. Now, what's left in the tyres. There'll be one more after this lap. No, there won't. He's on the last lap now. Time will elapse on this lap. So this should be the white flag. We'll only see that confirmed when the clock runs down to 0. BMW's first through fourth at the moment, with Harry Tinknell looking to be the best non-Beamer in fifth position in the 55 Ford. Ayachan Guven back up to sixth position as it stands at the moment, and Alessandro Balzan back up to seventh. That's the best Ferrari result we've seen in the 3 IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational rounds of the season so far. So Nicky Katz
was another driver who didn't take tyres, so that proves that Van Gisbergen's strategy
would have worked.
Could well have worked.
Yeah, I agree, Ben. I agree. I think the key to it, as we talked about, was him. Oh, Foley's gone wide. Foley's gone wide. Now, was he helped there by Van Gisbergen? That's not a battle for position. And here comes the BMW. That's Connor De Filippi. That's the battle for second and third. This is the last lap. Time's elapsed. Katzberg's going to win it, but which BMW is going to be second and third? Between the 96 Turner BMW, the Liqui Moly car is holding on to it at the moment, but Robbie Foley's been off and got dirty tyres. Katzberg wins. It's another BMW victory, and it will be Turner BMW in second. Robbie Foley, what a recovery and a bit of redemption after real bad luck in the last couple of rounds. Third for Connor De Filippi. Philip Eng, what a drive, has come through from, was it 47th you said?
46th he started.
46
to 4th, just the 42 positions, so about one position every 1/4 laps.
Harry Tinknell is the best non-BMW in 5th position.
And John Aycan Guven spun on the last one lap and down to, I think, finishing 14th spot. Just 20 seconds, spun on his own, nobody around him. And it's exactly what I said at the start. He is very fast, but he doesn't have the consistency across the whole race.
Let's give you the results then in the third round of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational Series here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, presented by Hagerty. Nicky Katzberg by what looks a comfortable 3 seconds at the end from the privateer Turner BMW. Robbie Foley was right there for most of the race. Connor De Filippi on the tailpipes of Robbie at the end. It's an all BMW podium again, with Philip Eng driving through the field from 46th to 4th in 4th position and just 5 seconds away at the end. Brilliant strategy from the Team Austria BMW driver. Tinknell's the best non-BMW and one of 3 Fords in the top 10. Then it's Spengler for BMW in 6th. Shinya Mishimi quietly up to 7th position. Then AJ Allmendinger, great result for the Dinger. Westy and Kenton Cook. Well, Kenton had a pretty eventful day as well, but he gets a top 10 finish. Jack Hawkes with an 11. Sebastian Priaulx was looking good early on, but then battling for 4th position, made the mistake, and that cost him. Rodrigo Fluker was the man he was battling with at the time. He finishes 13. Ayachan Guven for Porsche had the pace, but not the consistency in 14th. Vautier in 15th. Mirko Bortolotti was fast early on too. He finishes 16th. And the top 20 made up by John Edwards and Matt Bell. What a great entry to the series for Matt Bell and the Rebel Rock number 71 BMW. Alessandro Balzan was unlucky to be as far down as 19th. I liked his strategy as well. Vanto in 21st. Then Morad. James Collado gets his feet wet for the first time in this series. Then Shane Van Gisbergen will be steaming. He was battling at the very sharp end of the field, holding the lead, and was turned around by the eventual leader. Patrick Long in the Hagerty Porsche in 26th. Parker Chase, Michael Lewis, Corey Lewis, and Colin Brown for the top 30. Behind that, everyone was off the lead lap. Wow, brilliant stuff for the third race of the season. There's some stories further down the field, but they were all ultimately well off the lead lap, and whether it was accident damage, and there were a few walking wounded towards the end. Dan Goldberg got involved in a couple of incidents as well. We didn't see too much of the guys at the back of the field, and Nick Tandy looked pretty good early on, but a couple of spins from the Porsche driver sent him down. Right, let's catch up with a bit of action in our Michelin post-race tech, and then we'll have a word with some of the drivers. Let's start with Robbie Foley. What happened to him? Did he just lose it on his own on that last lap? Yeah, he did. Tyres getting a little bit old and just slung it sideways at turn 6. Van Gisbergen went through, and he just managed to get it back before Connor De Filippi got through. Let's see if we can have a word with Robbie. Robbie Foley, John Hindorf in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Just drop your camera down a bit so we can see how gorgeous you look after all of that, Robbie. Now, that's how you've been ending up in the early part of the season. It's about time you had a bit of luck, mate. Really good drive. Was it important for you to just get those early laps over and done with this week?
Yeah, I think so. As you saw in the race, tire wear was pretty critical. So, I just tried to save the tires early on in the race and kind of have something at the end. Lap traffic definitely played a part. Had a couple of minor contacts, but overall it kind of went to plan. Didn't execute quite the perfect lap in qualifying. Nice job to Bruno on the pole, but finally sort of a good race now after some bad luck in the first two. So super happy to put the Turner BMW on the podium.
Now, did you change tyres, Robbie, when you came in? Clearly, Shane didn't, SVG didn't, and he splashed for just about 13 seconds of fuel. The AVS guys really rolling the dice there. It would have been an interesting last few laps. Did you put new Michelins on?
Yeah, we did. We had a great strategy just to come in pit early, just before the yellow, and put new rubber on. So, our cars are really strong at the end, and I think that played a part. I didn't exactly see what happened for the lead, but ultimately, I think we had the pace on Shane just with the tires, and it worked out great at the end.
You got close to Nicky Katz, Berg, a couple of times. If that had been a Ford or a Ferrari or a Porsche, would you maybe have pressed it a little bit more?
Yeah, probably a little bit. Honestly, it was just about trying to stay close and just have a look at maybe a pass off the backstretch or into turn 2, but super difficult to overtake here. Nicky did a great job managing the traffic. I got held up a few times. And ultimately, I was just pushing super hard in the last lap, made a small mistake myself. But overall, I think it was a good race. Tire management came into it at the end, and I think Nicky just had a bit more pace at the end. I could catch him, but not enough to be able to make a move.
Yeah, well done staying ahead of Connor De Filippi when you lost it at the bottom of turn 6 there. So is it virtual tacos or real tacos for the Turner team now then?
Yeah, well, I guess we can give both a try now. So, we'll have a winner, or not quite a winner taco dinner, but we'll have a podium celebration for sure.
Cheers, mate. Well done this week. That was a bit more as we were expecting from you. Got a bit of better luck this week. Robbie Foley in second position. Nicky Katzberg finished ahead. We're going to try and grab him for a wee word. There was plenty going on at the front of the field in the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational third round, presented by Hagerty here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. My driver of the race, undoubtedly Philip Eng, who drove up from 46th to 4th position, making it a 1, 2, 3, 4 for BMW, but they didn't seem to have it all their own way. The other manufacturers were there or thereabouts, but got involved in other incidents. Let's see if we can grab Nicky for a quick word. While we're waiting for Nicky, let's have the third place driver, Connor De Filippi. Hi, Connor. It's Hindorf here in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. And good to have your company, Mick. I thought you might have got second there at the end. Your eyes must have lit up when you saw Robbie sideways at the bottom of turn 6.
Yeah, it was getting close, I was just trying to have a clean race, and that's what I was doing, to slowly work my way forward, trying to keep the tires underneath me and try to attack at the end. And I saw I made a little slip up. I'm not sure what that was, but honestly, I was happy with third. This was only my second proper sim race, and this is all new to me. So to be on the podium, that's a big result for me, and I'm happy for BMW to show another strong result here with our iRacing program.
What was the strategy then, Connor? Qualifying was only 2 laps, barely enough time to get heat in the tyres, and the qualifying performances were nowhere near what we were watching in practice before then.
Yeah, in this game, it's tricky to get the tires in. That's a big thing that took me a long time to kind of figure it out, and I still don't quite have it is quite figured out as the top guys, but I'm getting there. Qualifying is super important with the field being so close. So I was starting a lot further up than I was at WeatherTech Raceway, so that made a big difference this time. We did some long runs during our training, and we knew that tire wear could maybe play a little bit bigger of a factor. So I kind of personally committed to the tires early in the race because I wanted to be able to attack at the end rather than be on the defense. And that's exactly what we did. My strategy worked out, and they called me in perfectly. We did an undercut, made some time up, and it was a clean race.
There was some great battling going around you as well as you were closing in. That battle from 4th to about, I think, 9th or 10th at one stage was getting a bit intense until Sebastian and Rodrigo had the coming together in front of you. How close were you to picking up some of the damage there?
Yeah, I saw them battling back there. I had a few contacts with some lapper cars. It was really hard to predict them sometimes. Sometimes they would look like they're leaving the door open, and then they would just kind of close the door. So I had a couple close calls. But in the end, it worked out. I saw they were battling back there, so I tried to save a little fuel at the end. We were kind of tight on fuel, so I had to do a little bit of that. It was just like real life. It was super fun, and really, really proud of it.
To anybody who says, Connor, this is not real racing. What I always say is the cars and the tracks might not be real, but the racing and the competitive element is absolutely real, isn't it?
Oh, it's there for sure. I mean, I'm sweating. I had the Tornado fan blitzing over here the whole race, trying to keep me cool. It feels like you're in the real race car over here because it's so intense. And I mean, if anything, it's actually mentally fatiguing more so in the race car because you don't have that sense of feel, So everything that you're feeling is actually going through your eyes. So you're having to concentrate a lot more rather than being able to feel the car slide. You're having to see it through the screen. So it takes a lot of focus. So an hour and a half race feels like a triple stint in the real car.
Good work, mate. On the back end of the podium. Have a good weekend, and thanks for joining us this Thursday night. See, I tell you, this competition is real. It is real. We're going to see if we can grab another couple of drivers. We've got a few minutes left of broadcast time. Drew, so we're going to go to 4th position now, and my man of the race, Philipp Eng for BMW Team Austria. Philip, barely anything went on in your race from 46th to 4th then, just a quiet Thursday night drive. How was that for you?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Was really, really good fun. And I'm in this commentating booth in the virtual one more often than in real. I don't know if this is positive or negative, but it's still always cool to hear you and to be interviewed by you. It was an amazing race. I unfortunately got an off track on my second lap in qualifying. And then you're starting on the back. That's where I had to start. But then in the race, I just kept out of everything. I think I only had 1 or 2 little contacts, but was perfectly executed from the team. Super happy for BMW to have another 1, 2, 3, 4. Car was amazing. And I hope to hear you again, maybe on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. You'll be in the DNLS on Saturday, which we're covering on the Radio Show Limited network of audio and visual channels. Tell me about that incident when there was that huge line of cars from Rodrigo Fluger, then it was Sebastian, then it was Bruno. You were a bit further back, and they came together at turn 4. You got a lot of advantage out of that. I bet you couldn't believe you look at that point, could you?
No, I just, when I was behind Bruno, obviously you are being more cautious with your teammates than with other competitors. So I just tried to stay there. I knew that one of the Fords only changed 2 tires. So he clearly was struggling in front. And then, there was carnage, and I just moved left, indicator to the left, and I waited a bit, and it paid off. So it was very exciting. I'm completely exhausted, like after a real race, but this is so much fun, and thanks to iRacing, thanks to IMSA for putting up this show, and to hear your voices on the stream is so cool as well. So thanks for that, and I'll be back next time for sure if I can.
quick thought about the contrast from you winning with your teammates in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife on Saturday, where you did a 4-hour driving stint in the early part of the morning, to this little 1.5 hours. It's just a quick sprint round a 2.25 mile circuit. You couldn't get much different, could you?
No, but I can tell you that both races were quite tough and quite exhausting. Especially this one. I have never been to Mid-Ohio in real life, which is a shame because I think it's a great circuit and it's definitely on my bucket list. But it's a very short circuit, so again, there was quite a lot of traffic with lapped cars. So you just had to keep it clean. I just made sure that I got to the caution with a clean car, and then I knew that my race could potentially start. And I just got through well. Obviously, you also need to be lucky, which I was today, which I was not last time in Laguna Seca, where I lost the potential win. But that's racing. But I love it, and it's super good fun.
It was very entertaining to watch as well. Thanks for being with us, Philip. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you at the Nürburgring Nordschleife on Saturday. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to pick up Nicky Katz, Berg, our winner. He's probably hiding at the moment, Nick, from Shane van Gisbergen, isn't he? To be honest,
and Bruno as well. You know,
yes, true.
But you know, Nicky's had the rough end of the stick. In some ways from his own mistakes in the first two rounds, but he now will leave Mid-Ohio in the lead of the championship with the first, second, and third against 2 firsts and the 6th for Bruno Spengler. And those two guys certainly are the standouts as far as points is concerned. But he got himself the front. He overtook Spengler, and he then forced his way to the front. He was aggressive when he needs to be aggressive. The contact with SVG may have been a coming together, may have been a net code, but even so, he was prepared to push where he needed to, and he wasn't in any way going to give up his chance. He wasn't going to give way to Spengler. Spengler, on the other hand, had a massively exciting race of comings together and avoiding, and I'm probably walking away from this. He's both disappointed to be 6th and very relieved to get 6th.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Nicky Katzberg not showing up for the post-race interview. Bo Barfield is our IMSA race director. He'll not be happy about that. There'll be words before the next race, I'm sure. Nicky, if you're listening somewhere, you're going to get a slap on the wrist for that one. Ben Constantiouris, BMW's 1-4 again, but once again, as much by other people being the architects of their own downfall as by the pace and the consistency of the BMW drivers.
And I think it's down to the way that these drivers are able to feel in a safe zone with the car. I really think that to get the best out of the other brands, you really have to hustle, drive it on the edge, and therefore it's so much easier to find yourself with problems. Someone like Aykan Guven or Nick Tandy, they're fantastic drivers both in the virtual and the real world, but it's clear that car is on the edge when it comes to getting the best performance against these other brands. And great to see Ford in the mix, but again, ultimately not there enough to actually get a decent result. And I don't know, in terms of the characters of the circuit we move on to, whether it'll ever come to them.
Nice to see Ferrari running up there for a while as well. Alessandro Balsan, Nick Damon, first time racing with us, and he and James Collado are the first time racing with us. Those guys, they had the pace as well, but just didn't work out for them.
And I'll give you an example of how good a car it is to drive. I've been taking it around laps of Mid-Ohio with the base setups, and I've been doing like 1:21.5, so I've been 2.5 seconds off professional racing.
In the BMW.
Because the car is really good to drive.
But you did say to me, Nick, that it's quite difficult visibility-wise, which I wonder is some of these accidents and touches.
Yeah, you can't.
Can you judge where the inches are?
You couldn't race without a triple screen.
Right.
Okay. But it is hard to see out. But it is just such a stable car. It's so planted. And once the tyres have got some warmth in, and even absolute hacks like me can get the thing round at reasonable speed.
Ben Constantiouris and Nick Damon join me, John Hindorf, in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Thanks to Nick, thanks to them, to those two, to Tim Gray, our producer up in London, the responsible adult was everywhere, and to Drew, Cisco, Alex, Jake, Tim and Evan, who are the brilliantly talented iRacing team over there in Massachusetts. I've been John Hindorf. That was the third round of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational presented by Hagerty. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time to do it all again. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and the weekend. Bye-bye.